Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Naruto uses Hiten Mitsurugi in the Chunin exams part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. A blonde 12-year-old boy was currently sitting down on top of the 4th Hokage's head protruding from the large mountain, which the locals named as the Hokage Mountain overlooking Konohagakure no Sato below. He had a small smile on his face as he enjoyed the tranquility of being high up in the mountains, the wind messing around with his hair and caressing his face, whose cheeks were sporting 3 whisker marks each similar to those of a cat or a fox. The blonde was wearing a traditional royal blue kimono, white hakama pants, and a pair geta sandal with black straps. Despite being in a shinobi village, the boy likened to wear the same outfit as those in the daimyo's court. It made him stand out in the crowd, but he didn't care. In fact, there were a lot of things that he didn't care about, and one of them being the village's treatment of him. The boy knew why the village hated him, but he didn't care. He had already discarded such emotions a long time ago, leaving him with a laid-back personality with a carefree attitude that made the weights on his shoulders disappear like the morning tide. The boy was brought out of his musings when he sensed someone appear behind him. He spoke without taking his eyes away from the sight of the village. "What can I do for you, Anbu-san?" asked the blonde boy in a calm voice, eyeing the Konoha Shinobi Academy where some of the classes were training their weapon skills. It didn't bother him that the place he was eyeing was farther than any normal eye could see. Meh, his eyesight was pretty far from normal anyway. "Uzumaki Naruto, the Hokage requires your presence in his office as soon as possible," said the Anbu in a no-nonsense voice. Naruto nodded and stood up. He brushed the dirt that clung to the back of his hakama and turned to the waiting Anbu, who was wearing a bear mask. "I am ready, Bear-san," said the blonde with a nod. Bear nodded and grasped Naruto's shoulder before disappearing in a cloud of smoke and leaves. Sarutobi Hiruzen, the Sandaime Hokage of Konohagakure no Sato, was currently sitting on his favorite chair inside his office on the top floor of the Hokage Tower when a bear-masked Anbu appeared in a cloud of smoke and leaves with one of his hands on the shoulder of the boy he was expecting. "Welcome, Naruto-kun," greeted Sarutobi while giving the blonde boy a smile, which the boy returned. "Hi, Gigi." Naruto returned the greeting. "What can I do for you, old man?" Sarutobi turned to the shadows and spoke in a commanding voice. "Anbu, leave this room and make sure that no one disturbs my conversation with Naruto." 2 more Anbus, these ones were wearing a cat and boar masks, stepped out of the shadows and disappeared in smoke and leaves, quickly followed by the bear-masked Anbu. The Sandaime saw his order being carried out, immediately flew through a series of seals, causing the walls, ceiling, and floor to glow blue for a bit before disappearing. Naruto saw the precaution that the aged leader went through and could only wonder what the problem was. "What's so serious that you have to order your Anbu guards to leave and activate the office's privacy barrier?" Naruto asked, confused. Sandaime's face grew grim before addressing the blonde in front of him. "We have a serious situation on our hands, Naruto-kun," said the aged leader in a grim tone which made Naruto frown. "You know I'm already retired, old man," the blonde said while giving the Hokage a serious look. Sarutobi nodded. "I know, but I regret to have to reactivate your position, Naruto-kun. We have a serious situation on our hands and I don't know anyone who can take care of it better than you do." "What's the situation?" Naruto said dryly, since he really didn't want to go back to his old life. "And why is it so serious that you have to activate my old position as your hidden assassin?" 3 days ago, I dispatched 2 of my elite jounins and a squad of chunin to investigate a report concerning some IWA shinobis trespassing on our borders. It was supposed to be a simple fact-finding mission, but I just got a word today from a wounded chunin that the rest of his squad was ambushed and the 2 jounins were overpowered and kidnapped," reported Sarutobi in a grim tone. This immediately made Naruto alert. Kidnapped jounins weren't really that serious, since Anbu could easily retrieve them if necessary. However, the grim tone in the Sandaime's voice spoke of a whole new reason why his position as Kage's hand was being reactivated. "Again, what does it have to do with me?" Naruto pressed, wanting to get as much info as possible since he really didn't want to get back into his old job, especially with the experience he went through. "The 2 jounins who were ambushed and kidnapped was my son, Sarutobi Asuma, and his partner, Yohi Kurinai," said the Hokage, who observed Naruto stiffen upon hearing the name. "What?" exclaimed Naruto. "Asuma and I was kidnapped?" Sarutobi nodded. "Yes. We were short-handed that time, so I had to dispatch Asuma since there wasn't anyone around who I trust to handle the situation. Kakashi is in an S-rank mission with Guy, so we don't have anyone powerful enough to take care of the situation. If the IWA shinobis were strong enough to overpower my son and Konoha's genjutsu mistress easily, then the other jounins I would be sending wouldn't be able to handle the mission. I see, said Naruto with a grim look on his face. No matter how much he wanted to be free from his previous lifestyle, he would sacrifice anything for the people he loved. Do we have any other information other than the ones you told me? Yes, said Sarutobi with a nod. According to the Chunin who brought the report, they were ambushed in Patrol Route 27 by 8 Jounin-level shinobis wearing IWA headbands, so we are sure that the Tsuchikage is behind this. However, I don't want to spark a war with IWA since we are still not fully recovered from the Kyuubi attack 12 years ago. Your mission is to find Asuma and Kurenai, retrieve them, and make an example that Konoha is not to be trifled with. You know of my promise to no longer kill, right? Naruto pressed, reminding the aged leader of his promise when he retired from his position. Sarutobi nodded, telling Naruto that he remembered that specific promise. I know. I didn't say you have to kill them. All I said was to make an example of them. Naruto nodded in understanding, a grim look on his face. Understood, Hokage-sama? Said Naruto, lapsing to his formal bearings considering his newly reactivated title, Kage's Hand. Will this reactivation of my title a permanent order? Sarutobi shook his head. No, Naruto-kun. The reactivation only concerns this mission and nothing else. However, I have a proposition for you after you return that I know you would find interesting. Hi, Hokage-sama, said Naruto with a nod while totally curious of what the old leader had in store for him in the future. If you'll excuse, I will be going home to prepare for the mission. Good luck, Naruto-kun, and stay safe, said the Hokage with a smile which was returned by Naruto despite the seriousness of the situation. I always am, old man. No need to worry. I'll have Asuma and his love interest safely returned to Konoha within the day, promised Naruto before disappearing silently from the office. Sarutobi smiled as he continued to look at the place where his surrogate grandson was standing before releasing a tired sigh. He didn't want to do it to the boy who he loved like his own, but his power and expertise was needed. He only hoped that his future plan for the boy was accepted without having to debate with his reasons. He returned to his work while silently praying for the safety of the Kage's Hand. Naruto appeared in his simple apartment located in the entertainment district of Konoha. He immediately went to a wall and activated the security seal hidden, revealing a niche where his shinobi gears were placed. You're really going through with this? Said a voice in his mind. Yes, Naruto mentally replied. I have to. I don't like it, but I know that my power is needed to save Asuma and I knew that this day would come. The voice mentally crowed in delight. I know, Kyuubi, and you're right. It was only time before something serious happened that the old man would call on my skills again. Naruto berated the bija sealed in his gut. Anyway, I'm curious as to what the old Hokage wanted after you complete this mission. Kyuubi asked his container. Any ideas? Nope. Whatever it is, then the crafty old man is up to his old tricks again, was all Naruto said before retrieving a black katana on a similarly colored sheath with a broken chain attached to the end of the hilt and tucking behind his sash on his left hip. He also pulled out a black sash and tied it around his neck while making sure that his face and birthmarks were properly covered. He resealed the hidden closet and turned towards the full-body mirror in one corner of the room. There was a bitter taste to his mouth when he saw his reflection staring back at him. His old persona was back and there was nothing he could do about it. I guess this is it, said Naruto with a sigh. Welcome back, Hidokiri Batusai, said Kyuubi as he relished in the thought of having this persona of his container come back from the grave. Thanks, I think, replied Naruto bitterly, not really happy with what he was about to do, before taking single step forward before silently disappearing from the room using the same technique he used to exit the Hokage's office, Shuinpa. A 6-year-old Uzumaki Naruto was currently sitting on the roof of one of the largest buildings in Konoha while observing the busy streets below. Unlike other kids, the whiskered blonde didn't have a smile on his face. It was the total opposite. Instead of the usual childlike happiness that kids his age should have, a frown was visible that reflected an indifferent persona that no child should have. Naruto observed the crowd below as he leaned forward on the rails. He raised his right hand and saw the healed slash mark on his wrist. This had been the result of one of the few attempts he had of ending his life. A life that he no longer wanted to partake since it was marred with suffering and hatred. The villagers were blatant in their views of him as he strolled down the busy streets of Konoha. First, he didn't know why he was hated, ridiculed, and sometimes attacked, beaten to an inch of his life. But no matter how much the mob left him bruised and wounded, it would just heal up the next day with no one the wiser. In terms of history, Naruto didn't have much compared to other children who enjoyed the shelter and love that their parents showered them. As long as he could remember, he lived in one of the orphanages in the village. He stayed there for 4 years. 4 years of loneliness and sadness. His caretakers didn't like him. They were obvious with their dislike by feeding him moldy food and gave him the smallest room with the barest of necessities: a broken bed, a tattered blanket, and a bug-infested pillow. His clothes could be considered as rags which the matron and the rest of the caretakers foisted on him. Considering that he was still a naive boy then, he didn't care and treated it as kindness. He endured it until he was thrown out by the matron to the unforgiving streets of Konohagakure no Sato, the village hidden in the leaf. Of course, the news of his leaving the orphanage reached the ears of his surrogate grandfather, the Sandaime Hokage, so he was given his very own apartment in one of the rundown apartments located in the village slums. When Naruto looked back to that particular memory, he couldn't deny the fact that his current housing was loads better compared to his threadbare room in the orphanage. The indifferent facade that he had now wasn't present a year ago. In fact, he had a bubbly personality that showed true smiles even to people who hated him. However, an attack that happened a year ago forced him to change. It forever took the naive smiles and laughter to be replaced by an indifferent persona with no love for life. The warm smiles were replaced by a cold frown that would chill anyone who saw it. The warm blue eyes that reflected the happiness of life was no longer present to be replaced by a cold icy blue that would send shivers down anyone's spine. It was a year ago that everything changed. The attacks got worse after he was thrown out of the orphanage. He would be chased by a rampaging mob which eventually grew in intensity when the people realized that the shinobis who were keeping guard of the village wasn't doing anything to stop it. It was a year ago that he discovered the source of his misfortune. It was a year ago that he discovered one of the village's most dark secrets. It was a year ago that he was beaten to an inch of his life and finally found the source of his new outlook. Fortunately, or unfortunately for him, a powerful blow from a shinobi knocked him unconscious. It was then that he met the beast that lay in wait inside of him. The beast that would make hardened veteran shinobis wet their pants in fear. The nine-tailed demon fox. The Kyuubi no Yoko. Flashback. Naruto opened his eyes. He didn't see the alley which was the scene of the current brutal attack to his person. No, he saw that he was in a sewer of some sort. He was currently lying down on a very wet floor. The walls were dirty with pipes all going to who knows where. It must have been a trick of the light, but the pipes were glowing blue and red. Despite popular belief, Naruto wasn't stupid. He was intelligent, but he hid it since he didn't know how the villagers would take it if the most hated child in the village hidden in the leaf had a brain between his ears. No, he hid it and kept on smiling like an idiot. Despite the beatings he got and the obvious hatred leveled at him, he held a childlike innocence, hoping against hope that everything would turn out all right. This current attack, however, was enough for him. No longer could he hold on to his innocence. This attack was more brutal than the rest, and he couldn't deny the fact that the villagers this time was extra vindictive considering the type of weapons they were carrying and using at him. Fortunately, or unfortunately in this case, one of the villagers who was beating the hell out of him with a rusty knife was able to voice out the reason of why he was being treated that way as each blow was dealt. It must have been the rage and anger that the villager was feeling that eventually gave way to the revelation. He was the Kyuubi. The demon. The nine-tailed fox. His intelligence, however, denied this as blows upon blows were rained down on him. He couldn't be the Kyuubi since he was his own person. He was Uzumaki Naruto. The village pariah. He wasn't the Kyuubi, and deep down, he knew this to be true. He looked around and observed the place he was in. He knew that he wasn't in the sewers of Konoha. He knew the sewers like the back of his hand since the underground catacombs of the village was his safe haven and escape route when the mobs would start chasing him. He would look for the nearest manhole and jump in, making his way along the maze-like cavern until he reached the manhole that was near the Hokage Tower, where he would immediately go to his surrogate grandfather, the Sandaime Hokage, for safety, or his apartment where he would hide without a peep until the crowd grew tired of looking for him. No, this wasn't the Konoha sewers that he grew to love. This was something else. Not knowing anything else to do, he pushed himself off the wet floor and started walking. He didn't know where to go, but he decided to just follow the pipes since they would eventually lead to somewhere. While he walked, he checked his body and was surprised to discover that the wounds and bruises that were supposed to be there were none to be found. He couldn't even feel any pain. He knew that he healed fast, but he knew that the healing wasn't that fast to get rid of the aftermath of the attack, especially one of this caliber. This was further made true when he discovered his clothes were still intact. His white t-shirt with the red whirlpool symbol in the middle was still in one piece and as clean as ever. His blue shorts were still there, protecting his modesty if he ever had one to begin with, considering his status in the village. Modesty was for the privileged, after all. He shrugged it off as one of life's many mysteries as he continued to follow the cavern to who knows where. He didn't know how long he walked, but he eventually reached the end of the metaphorical maze he was traversing. Naruto found himself in a large, spacious room. At the opposite side of the entrance was a very large cage with bars as thick as his malnourished body. In the middle of the cage, where a lock was supposed to be, had a square paper with the kanji of seal written in black ink. Naruto's mind was whirling as to what the cage could be holding, considering how fortified it was. In fact, the question of where he was currently at was pulled up again. But before he could do anything else, a powerful voice emanated from the darkness behind the bars. My container finally graced me with his presence. The voice growled from somewhere in the darkness and reverberated across the room, amplifying its intensity. I was thinking that it would take a few years more before you would discover my presence, but it seemed that the idiotic villagers have put you on the brink of life and death, forcing your consciousness to retreat deep within your mind. Naruto didn't say anything, but instead peered into the darkness to try to determine who owned the voice that spoke to him. It didn't take long for him to see a pair of gigantic eyes looking at him, a pair of red eyes that spoke of power and cunning that could never belong to a human. Who are you? Naruto asked calmly. He was scared, sure, but he was tired of showing his fear. The current attack from the villagers hardened him to the point that his emotions were starting to become an echo, a memory that was better ignored or forgotten. Oh? Not scared, are you? Said the voice, though this time there was an amused quality to it, as if it found his lack of fear laughable. I am scared, but I'm tired of wearing my emotions on my sleeves, replied Naruto as he approached the cage, though he stopped a few scant meters away from it before peering into the cage while willing the darkness to disappear so he could see who he was talking to. It seemed that the current idiocy of the villagers hardened my container. The voice mused, though Naruto could feel a tinge of anger and rage behind it, which confused him. Why was the voice angry that he was attacked? Container? Naruto asked the voice. You already know who I am, boy. The voice growled at him. I know that you have an intelligent mind, a prodigy you might say, that you chose to hide behind that stupid smile of yours. I know everything about you, considering that I am inside you. Naruto thought about what the voice said. The voice of the villager who mentioned that he was the Kyuubi echoed in his head. If the villager was correct, then. Kyuubi? Naruto asked while dread rose from deep inside his hardening heart. But despite the admission, which he instinctively knew was correct, he continued to hold his gaze at the menacing red eyes staring back at him. Instead of an answer, the blonde could hear movement from deep within the cage. It didn't take long for the owner of the voice to show itself, and Naruto couldn't help but stare at the powerful figure in front of him. The owner of the menacing eyes was gigantic, and the physical structure was something that he only read in books. The creature was covered in red-orange fur. The facial structure was that of a fox, though the rest of body was of a human-like structure. 9 large tails were waving behind the creature as if it had a life of its own. You are correct, my container. I am the Kyuubi no Yoko, the 9-tailed demon fox, said Kyuubi as it revealed itself to its container and looking down at Naruto with a shrewd grin on its face. Why are you here? Didn't the Yondaime kill you 5 years ago? Better yet, where are we? Asked Naruto as he coldly stared at the legendary creature in front of him. He knew that he should be scared considering the tales he heard concerning the beast trapped in the cage in front of him, but he wasn't. In fact, he was more curious than scared, and it showed with a slight tilt of his head that made him look like a fox. Of course, Kyuubi saw the gesture and couldn't help but give a fawn-filled grin at the fox-like attitude its container was showing. To answer your question in order, I am here because I exist. The Yondaime didn't kill me but sealed me inside you, since killing me was above his skills at that time, nor it would ever reach such stage to deal me intense harm to purge my existence. And finally, we are inside your mind, or in this case your soul, answered Kyuubi as he sat down on his haunches, tails wrapped around him. The posture was intimidating, to say the least. My soul, Naruto trailed off as he digested the information. If that is the case, then you're sealed inside me. Meaning, the villagers were correct in saying that I am you. Kyuubi shook its head and released a growl of anger, which was followed by a wave of red energy that pushed past Naruto, though the boy stood his ground and refused to give in to the menacing power that threatened to engulf him. Don't insult me. You could never be me. Would a kunai placed in a storage scroll replace the name of the scroll? No, human. You are not me. I am merely sealed inside you. You are my jailer, my container, Kyuubi explained with a growl. Naruto simply nodded at the explanation, his mind already processing the possibility of having the most powerful Bija sealed inside him. There were questions plaguing his mind, and he knew that the fox wouldn't be forthcoming with the information despite it knowing what he needed to know. I see. So this is the reason why the villagers kept attacking me and showing me nothing but hatred. Naruto said coldly with narrowed eyes, his mind running through the memories of the experience he faced from the residents of Konoha. Kyuubi looked at those cold eyes and couldn't help but shiver at the intensity behind them. The Bijou could see that the current attack, a step up from the previous attempt to destroy its container, hardened the child in front of him. No, its container could never be considered a child. Despite the age, the child in front of him was clearly a man. A man that grew up in hatred and suffering that no human should ever be forced to endure. You're correct, my container. However, that is neither here nor there. I'm sure you have questions in that prodigious mind of yours, and you know that only I can grant you the answers you seek. Correct, Kyuubi? But I don't see you being forthcoming with the information unless you get something out of it. If you're really a fox, then it would only stand to reason that you have the same mannerism as your animal kin. Naruto drawled, recalling the book on the various animals given to him by his surrogate grandfather when he was taught how to read while he was still in the orphanage. Of course, he picked it up rather quickly, and his photographic mind processing all the information it contained and embedding it into his thoughts in crystal clarity. Kyuubi was amazed. Gone was the child in front of him to be replaced by a cold, calculating human who was forced to endure the harshness of life. This was going to an enjoyable relationship. The Bijou shuddered in pleasure at the potential the boy, no man, held in him, a potential that can only be rivaled by a tailed beast. Kyuubi couldn't wait to tell its container of his proposition, and it knew that it would be well received. It seems that you know me well, my container. But despite what you think, my offer to answer your questions requires no payment. The seal that keeps me inside you demands nothing less. You control everything, and the only thing that was allowed of me by the Shinigami who supervised the sealing was access to your thoughts. The law of non-interference is in place, and only you could lift it if you so desire. The Kyuubi explained to its contained with a fanged grin. I see. So you would answer all my questions despite your unwillingness to do so. Interesting. Naruto mused out loud while looking around the room he was in. He noted the dreary atmosphere surrounding him. If this was his mind, then he needed to do something about it. You said that this is my soul and my mind? Yes. Kyuubi said with a nod, curious as to what its container was thinking. The Bijou saw its container close his eyes, followed by a deep concentration on his face. It was speechless when the cavern morphed into pure darkness. Gone was the sewer-like cavern. Gone was the cage that held him in place. It was like as if the two of them were standing in darkness with no solid footing whatsoever. Slowly, the darkness receded to reveal a large forest. Great trees with heights that reached the heavens above surrounded the large clearing they were in. The wet floor was replaced by a grassy field with flowers dotting here and there to add to its overall beauty. The final change was a sudden heat that seemed to surround its neck. It didn't take long for a collar to materialize around it with a name tag with the kanji of seal on its face. Kyuubi growled in anger at being treated like a dog, a pet. A memory surfaced from its mind. A memory of red eyes with 3 black tomos before darkness claimed him before he was sealed into the child. Its moment of anger was dispelled when its container spoke. Interesting. You were right when you said that I control everything in this place, my mindscape, so to speak, said Naruto as he looked around before his eyes settled on the collar that the Bijou was wearing. Now that is an interesting development. I didn't imagine the piece of accessory on your neck. It seemed that there is more to the Shinigami's seal. No matter how much I change the looks of my mindscape, the seal keeping you in place would still manifest itself in one form or another. Kyuubi relaxed after hearing that explanation from the blonde. Its container didn't purposely place the demeaning accessory around its neck. It would let this go since its container had nothing to do with it. You're correct in a way, said Kyuubi as it lay down on the soft grass, inwardly relishing the feel of nature underneath him. It was so long ago that he felt such sensation from nature and welcomed it with childlike glee. The Bijou made itself comfortable and crossed its front paws in front of him as he regarded its container, who was already seated on the piece of rock that materialized behind him. It couldn't deny the fact that Naruto was a prodigy if he could command such change within his mind in just a short span of time. Intelligent men couldn't even begin to grasp the control that the brat had. So, boy, tell me your questions and I will answer them to the best of my abilities. Naruto stared at the fox for a few seconds before the first question of many escaped his lips. What's your name? Kyuubi was surprised at the question. The Bijou was expecting more serious questions, but the boy asked its name first. Interesting. It seemed that you realized, how I don't know, that Kyuubi was a title and not my real name. I will humor you, human. My name is Kurama. A name given to me by my father. Father? Naruto asked curiously. Yes, my father. The man that I owed my life to, the man that created me and the rest of my siblings, the man that is a legend of your kind, the sage of the six paths, the Rikudo Sennin. Now this piece of information surprised the blonde. He read that the sage of the six paths was the founder of ninjutsu, but he didn't know the real history behind the man and the tailed beasts. I think this would be an interesting story to tell, said Naruto, not voicing his intent on learning the truth of the tailed beast, though he knew that the fox would eventually tell him. Indeed. If you're interested, then listen well, human. Naruto. If we are going to hold a decent conversation, then you might as well address me by my name, Kurama. Kyuubi nodded to the request. Naruto then. The story started with a great beast that ravaged the land when the elemental nations was still in its infancy. A beast that was even more powerful than I. The Kyuubi, the ten-tailed beast. 10 tails? Now that is one part of history that I haven't heard about. Of course you wouldn't, since it happened a long time ago, and was forgotten except for a few who loved to learn the true history of the world. But I digress. The Rikudo Sennin, the man I considered as father, sealed the Kyuubi into his body, thus making him the first Jinchuriki. Jinchuriki? Is that the name of those who had a demon sealed inside their body? Asked Naruto while unconsciously placing a hand on his stomach, not knowing that it was there that the seal of the Kyuubi was located. Correct. But before I start, I commend you on having such knowledge. A 5-year-old such as yourself shouldn't know of such terms, more so understand them with ease. Kyuubi complimented its container. I grew up faster than most, Kurama. It is both a blessing and a curse to be born with a well-developed mind. It was wrong of me to hide it, but I had no choice in the matter if I wanted to live. However, I don't think I have the drive to live anymore unless I find something that would push me to continue in this dreadful existence that people call life. Naruto said bitter, his face grew colder if it was possible. I have a proposition for you that you might find interesting, but let me finish the story first since you expressed the desire to learn, said Kyuubi. Naruto nodded in agreement. As I was saying, the Rikudo Sennin, my father, was the first Jinchuriki, which could be literally translated to power of human sacrifice. However, my father realized that the seal keeping the Kyuubi in place would shatter upon his death and release the demon again into the world of the living. So in order to avoid such powers from decimating the human race, my father used one of the techniques granted to him by the Rinnegan to separate the Kyuubi's chakra into 9 entities. This gave birth to the tailed beasts that exist today. The Rinnegan? Naruto asked curiously, unfamiliar with the word. The Rinnegan is the most powerful of the 3 great eye techniques that dwarf the power of the Sharingan and Byakugan. According to my father, the Rinnegan allowed the user to have the power of Kami, the power of life and death, of creation and destruction. The Rikudo Sennin used the creation powers of the Rinnegan to create 9 living bodies to house the power of the Kyuubi, thus me and my brothers and sisters were born. Interesting. I never knew that there were other eye techniques aside from the Byakugan and Sharingan, said Naruto as he rubbed his chin, an action that Kyuubi found weird considering that said person doing it was a boy. More like a man trapped in a boy's body. There are other eye techniques aside from those 3, minor ones with minor abilities that merited no distinction from the great 3. I see. Thanks for answering my question, Kurama. Please continue. Anyway, the human race is prideful at best and couldn't stand the thought of having entities more powerful than them, so thus began their goal to capture our powers and seal them into humans that they could control. However, we were too powerful for them, and only father's descendants had the power to truly control us if the need arises. Descendants? The Rikudo Sennin had children? Naruto asked in excitement. This was a piece of history that no longer existed, and he craved to learn more. Yes. It was hidden from the human race that the Rikudo Sennin fathered 3 children who became legends in their own right. These 3 children were blessed by father with his own powers, which manifested differently in all 3 of them. The firstborn was the father of the Senju clan, who inherited father's calming presence. This was the reason why Senju Hashirama had the power to subdue and calm us even when under the fit of rage. His Mokuton bloodline was the manifestation of father's power in him. The secondborn was the father of the Uchiha clan and was gifted with father's eye, though it mutated to become the Sharingan as it is known today. The eye held its own unique abilities depending on the owner's power and mindset, but its ultimate power towards the tailed beast was to put us in an illusion to trigger the rage we inherited from the Kyuubi. However, such power was sealed until the Sharingan's ultimate level is unlocked. Finally, the youngest son was the father of the Uzumaki clan and gifted by father's godlike body. This was one of the reasons why the Uzumaki clan was the fit holder of the tailed beast, since they inherited the sage's tolerance towards the Biju's potent chakra. A side effect to this is their healing factor and potent chakra reserves, which you display in abundance, as well as their longer lifespan. So you mean that my ability to heal rapidly from the various wounds I sustained from the attacks was because of the Uzumaki clan's bloodline? Naruto asked, mind already processing the information Kurama imparted to him. Yes and no. You have the healing factor that is unique to your clan alone, but it was further amplified by my presence inside you. It is known for a Jinchuriki to display the traits of the tailed beast inside of them, like Shikaku's Jinchuriki, who had complete dominion over sand and wind. So what did I get from you if each Jinchuriki displayed unique traits according to the bija sealed inside them? Aside from the boost on your healing abilities that would be an invaluable asset in the battlefield, you have the ability to properly utilize the two energies required to create chakra. Chakra is composed of an equal blending of both physical and spiritual energy. So you mean that aside from being able to use chakra that is utilized by shinobis, I could separate the two and use them in their raw form? Correct. Each of these two energies has their own specific use. For example, physical energy, or ki, is commonly used to enhance one's physical abilities. Spiritual energy, or riryoku, is mostly on creation. Or in this case, allowing you to shape reality and bend it to your will. If you combine these two, then you have chakra, an energy that allows one to manifest various effects in the physical world. Father's Rinnegan had this ability, though the power of the eyes itself allowed him greater control over it. In your case, you would be able to utilize it for minor feats compared to what he could do with it. I see. So it would be safe to say that you had knowledge on how to utilize these two energies and impart that knowledge to me? Yes. Since you are my container, it would only stand to reason that I will be teaching you how to use these energies to the fullest. Besides, I doubt that any human had the knowledge over ki and riryoku to properly utilize them. Also, if they do know about it, I doubt they would teach you considering your standing in the village, except for a chosen few, of course. I agree with you there. There are only a few I trust in this village: the Hokage, which I treat like a grandfather, the Ichiraku family, and some of the shinobis in the village who protected me from the attacks, said Naruto as he mentally listed the few people who he considered precious to him. I know. As I told you, Naruto, I have access to your memories, so everything that you experienced is known to me. Was Naruto's response before nodding. So, Kurama, when would this lessons begin? Asked Naruto with a little bit of excitement in his voice. As soon as you're ready, Naruto. But I suggest that we hold that thought for now, since I sense someone trying to wake you up. Naruto agreed with that. He could sense his consciousness inside his mindscape wavering, meaning that he was waking up in the real world. He gave Kurama a smile, which was his true smile. Thank you for being forthcoming with me, Kurama. I will see you soon, said Naruto before disappearing from the midscape. He opened his eyes in the real world and found himself in a familiar room with whitewashed walls. He turned his head to see the Hokage looking at him with a worried look on his face. Flashback end. Naruto could clearly remember that day more than a year ago when he met Kurama for the first time. He didn't know it at that time, but he gained a friend that helped him hold on to life despite the fact that he wanted to release himself from the mortal coil and join his parents in the afterlife. I didn't know that you held me in such high regard, Naruto, said Kurama in the bowels of his mind. Of course I do, Kurama, Naruto mentally replied as his eyes strayed to the scar on his wrist. I curse myself for having such a potent bloodline from my ancestors, since my actions of ending my life didn't work as well as I had hoped. If you weren't there, then I would have thrown myself in a volcano just to end my pitiful existence. To be honest, you gave me a reason to live, so that is why I'm still alive right now. And that reason would be? Kurama asked, though the Bijou already knew the answer to that, but this constant reminder would help his container cling to life and cease the pitiful attempts of cutting it short. To be strong. Stronger than anyone in the elemental nation. To protect myself and those I deem worthy and those that are precious to me, Naruto replied with determination. If that is the case, then I suggest that we mosey along to your hidden training ground so we can get started with today's lesson, said Kurama with a little excitement in the Bijou's voice. Lesson? Naruto asked curiously. Since you already had complete control over your Riryoku, then I will be teaching you to attempt to create your own weapon that would reflect the power of your soul. Naruto didn't say anything, but if one looked closer, they would see an excited gleam in his cold blue eyes. Giving the fox a mental nod, he pushed himself away from the rail and turned. He took a single step before disappearing from the roof towards his secret place to train with Kurama. Flashback 8 months ago. When he met Kurama and started his lessons in harnessing the raw power of Ki and Riryoku, the two eventually decided to use the abandoned training ground he discovered due to the advantages it offered. 1. The training ground was far away from Konoha that it would be almost impossible for shinobis to detect the energy spikes when Naruto started learning how to use the two energies inside him. 2. The training ground was fully equipped with everything he needed for his upcoming training. It contained training dummies, though these ones were quite old and sported evidence of frequent use, water and trees for control, and most importantly, a spacious ground to practice on. It had been 8 months since he started training his abilities and discovering the extent of his talents. It was astounding to say the least. The lesson started in earnest due to the fact that Naruto was quite adamant in attaining enough power to protect himself from the mobs that was always after his blood. Before harnessing the energies he had in his body, Kurama started Naruto with an in-depth lesson on what each energies could do. Instead of teaching the boy about chakra, which was quite common and the boy could learn it on his own if need be, Kurama instead focused on ki and riryoku. For starters, ki was the physical energy in the human body. This energy was mostly based on the physical body, though a master of ki could utilize its energies to improve one's speed and strength, amplifying their inherent power exponentially. Kurama explained to Naruto that the application of ki was mostly internal and battle-oriented, though it could be used in other functions, like healing and defense, if he knew how it was done. Unfortunately for the blonde, Kurama didn't know such application since it was of no use to the Bijou. Riryoku, on the other hand, was the total opposite. Spiritual energy was often used externally, allowing the user to create things that would often be impossible without the actual raw materials or outside the realm of reality. For example, Naruto, with his limited talent in using Riryoku, could compress his spiritual energy to create a projectile that would pierce, wound, or cause blunt force trauma depending on its power and compression. Also, Riryoku could also be utilized for defense, creating a field of spiritual energy to negate energy-based attacks or even physical ones if more power was applied. Once the introduction was done, Naruto was instructed by Kurama to start on a physical training program to further increase the amount of ki and Riryoku in his body. It would continue to grow as he aged until he reached his peak physical growth, but training would allow the energies to harmonize with the boy's body to allow him to use it easily. This was a good preparatory training program for future applications. For the first 3 months of Naruto's training, the boy focused on physical exercise and calisthenics while gaining a semblance of control over the two energies. Kurama instructed Naruto to run laps and engage in muscle-building exercises, like push-ups, sit-ups, and running around with weights that the blonde managed to acquire from the various shops in the village thanks to his masterful skills in infiltration and thievery, a side effect of living in the streets and surviving. It was on the 4th month of training that Kurama deemed Naruto to be good enough to start practicing the various techniques that the Bijou would be teaching him to properly utilize his talents. For Naruto, if he was asked to describe the feeling, ki was heavy and destructive while Riryoku was free-flowing and wild. If he was to compare it to elements, ki was earth and fire while Riryoku was wind and water. Kurama noted that it was a fine distinction, and the ability to distinguish the energies at this stage of the lesson was a talent that the blonde would find useful in the future. It took Naruto 2 weeks to properly channel ki and Riryoku without mixing the two up, and creating chakra in the process. Thanks to the blonde's mastery over his mindscape and soul, he was able to create a separate container of sorts to hold the energies for easy access. In his mind, he created 2 large lakes that would serve as the representation of the 2 energies inside him. He created another lake in between the 2 with a small canal connecting it with the others. The 3rd lake would serve as his chakra pool, so to speak, if he ever needed it. Kurama advised Naruto to make sure that his chakra pool should always be filled just in case. It was also good practice to have it at the ready to be used on short notice. Also, this would be a necessity once he entered the shinobi program where all the techniques were chakra-based. When he learned to differentiate ki, Riryoku, and chakra, as well as channeling each of them, Kurama started his training in earnest. The schedule was divided into 2 mornings for ki and afternoons for Riryoku. In terms of ki, Kurama instructed Naruto to start with punches and kicks on the training dummies while consciously channeling ki to his muscles and bones. At first, Naruto was dismayed at the lack of damage inflicted upon the training dummies, but the Bijou assured him that it was natural considering that he was still young and his muscles were still undeveloped to produce enough power to merit powerful hits. Naruto countered this by doubling his physical training regimen to increase his physical core. He had to resort to stealing a taijutsu training scroll from the Konoha library to facilitate this part of his training program. For his afternoon lessons on Riryoku, Kurama started Naruto on a technique to allow high-speed travel from one point to the other. The technique was called Shuinpa or Flash Step. By channeling a dense concentration of compressed Riryoku on his feet, Naruto could literally disappear from the point of origin to his destination. Unlike teleportation, Shuinpa was a pure speed technique that uses Riryoku to enhance his steps. The goal of the exercise was to arrive at his destination with the least number of steps. It took Naruto a month to master this technique to the approval of Kurama, which was 3 steps to make it to his secret training ground from his apartment in the village. Another technique that he learned using Riryoku was the ability to create a solid platform made of spiritual energy that he could stand on. This wasn't flying to say the least, but it was close. The spiritual platform would allow Naruto to walk on air as long as he had the energy to keep it up. This technique was used in conjunction with Shunpa, so he didn't need to stay on solid ground to initiate the speed technique. Naruto had fun flash stepping around the clearing, both in the air and on solid ground. In most cases, this exercise would often leave Naruto depleted of spiritual energy, but Kurama assured him that constant depletion of his reserves would eventually increase its potency and amount, so he would be able to last longer in the future. On the 5th month of training, Kurama taught Naruto how to solidify his Riryoku to create solid constructs with different effects. Naruto further improved this training program by using the various fantasy and adventure stories he read in the library as a basis for the technique. In most cases, Naruto used the various spells in the story books to replicate into a version that he could use with his Riryoku. The first spell he created was Sho. The method of this spell was to create a ball of highly compressed Riryoku and propel it towards a target, causing an impact-type damage that would push the target back. It wasn't damaging, but it was a good spell to use in specific scenarios where he needed to gain some grounds between him and his opponent. If properly created, Sho would come in the form of a small ball of white energy visible to the naked eye. For Naruto, he needed to master this spell to the point that the creation and travel of the spell would be invisible to the naked eye and instantaneous. The second spell he created, which made Kurama grumble at Naruto's intelligence, was Byakurai, or Pale Lightning. Sho was an impact technique, so Naruto created one that would pierce, thus resulting in the creation of this spell. The creation of Byakurai was quite simple, well, for someone of Naruto's talents anyway. Using his index finger, Naruto would compress his Riryoku in large amount, unlike Sho. Once the required energy was gathered, he would release the restrained energy in a burst, allowing it to fire in a straight line straight through an enemy's defenses. When Naruto experimented with it for the first time, it came out like white lightning, hence the name it was given. One of the training dummies was testament to the power of this spell when it ended up with finger-size holes when Naruto perfected it for use. Of course, Naruto also focused on defensive spells as well to add to his arsenal. This led to the creation of 3 defensive spells, Sai, Heinawa, and Seiki. Sai was a simple defensive spell to incapacitate his target. This involved the creation of a ring of pure Riryoku to be fired at a target. Upon impact, the ring would contract, which would bind an opponent's arms to their body. Heinawa was a variation of Sai. Instead of a simple Riryoku ring that would contract when it surrounds the target, Heinawa acted like a yellow rope that would wrap itself around a target, incapacitating it. This variation of Sai, however, would allow Naruto to pull on the target since the spell was still linked to him. Kurama commented that it looked like a lasso if nothing else. Naruto couldn't help but agree. Finally, Seiki was a shield spell with the ability to repulse any form of attack, whether physical or chakra-based. Naruto would create a sphere of pure Riryoku in any part of his body. Unlike his other spells which required compression of Riryoku, Seiki was created with a bit of ki added into the mix to give it a solidity required in shields. He didn't get to try this as of yet with live targets, but he experimented with it by throwing a rock, then using Shunpa to get into the trajectory of the thrown projectile, and using Seiki against it. So far, it was effective, but it needed more powerful attacks if he wanted to gauge its effectiveness. The next 3 months was spent in refining the techniques he already had in his arsenal. He continuously practiced with Shunpa to improve his speed with it. His goal was to get to the training from his apartment in a single step. At the end of the 3-month training, he was able to accomplish 2 steps. The progress was slow, but it was progress all the same. He also practiced with Sai, Heinawa, Seiki, Sho, and Byakurai until using them was second nature to him. Naruto, however, discovered a drawback to the spells he created. He needed to verbalize the name of the spell in order to release them. The good thing was he didn't have to voice it out loud. A simple whisper would suffice. Even Kurama had no idea why that was, but chalked it up to a possible mutation of the ability Naruto gained from him. Flashback end. So, Kurama, how do I go about materializing the weapon you told me about? And how did you know I could create one? Naruto asked his tenant before sitting down on his favorite rock in the middle of the training ground. Before we go into the actual creation of the weapon, let me first answer your second one, replied Kurama. As to your second question, I discovered that you gained the ability of minor creation from the ability Father had when he was alive. I didn't know why this happened, but only that it did. From what I could determine when you gave me permission to root around in your genetics, it would seem that your Riryoku and ki are deeply interconnected with your soul. This made it possible for you to bring out a weapon that only you could use and unique to your own. My father did the same thing and created 5 legendary weapons that are now Kumo's possession. I see, so how do I go about creating this weapon? Said Naruto excitedly. Despite his cold facade, he was still a child at heart, and discovering more of his abilities was fun for him. Not only was he getting stronger with each practice, he was enjoying it as well. The process in itself should be simple enough. All you need to do is to release all your ki and Riryoku to form a sword. Its form and abilities would depend on your soul, so to speak, explained Kurama. That's it? Naruto asked with hint of doubt in his voice. That's it, Naruto, replied Kurama with a huff. I might not know it in detail, but that is how Father used to create his weapons when he was in the mood. In fact, that was how the legendary weapons were created. He just let his soul guide the actual creation while he provided the power. I see, Naruto said finally after giving the explanation a bit more thought. From what you said, my soul would grant me a weapon that best fits me. My soul would be using the compressed form of the entirety of my ki and Riryoku to create it. Am I right? You got it. Father explained to me at one time that he needed to separate the energies first before combining them. The first and last time I saw him do it, he compressed all his ki in his right hand and Riryoku on the left. He would meditate while those two energies were out. Once he found his soul, his body would instinctively combine both energies to create the item in question. Why don't you give it a try? Kurama suggested. Naruto sent Kurama a mental nod before standing up and taking a deep breath. He was thankful of his 8 months of training since this exercise would require him to consciously channel his ki and Riryoku separately. If Kurama didn't force him to do the regimen, then this wouldn't be possible for him. He calmed himself down before raising his hands in front of him, channeling as much of the energies as he could into them. The left he channeled his ki, which caused said hand to burst into a brilliant shade of red-orange fire. The right he channeled his Riryoku, mimicking what happened on his left, but this time, the fire was white. He focused a bit to make sure that the flow of energy was constant before finally closing his eyes and started to meditate, and with practiced ease, went into a deep trance. Naruto didn't know how long he was floating in his mind, but he didn't care. He couldn't really describe the feeling of the result of the trance he was in, but he liked it. He floated in total abandonment, free of any emotions, free of any conscious thought. He just existed without the weight of his experience in his shoulders. Eventually, he felt himself shift as if he was being beckoned to a specific direction in the darkness. Not knowing what else to do, he willed himself to follow it, not knowing where it would lead him. He closed his eyes and waited for anything to happen. It felt like hours, but he finally felt his feet touch solid ground. He opened his eyes and saw himself in a clearing in the middle of a forest with an old-fashioned hut in the middle. Naruto looked around and couldn't help but smile at the tranquility the place exuded. He couldn't believe that this was the representation of his soul, the total opposite of what he saw himself in real life, a boy who suffered a hard past which left him forever scarred due to humanity's dark side. He chuckled at the irony of the situation. He was brought out of his musings when he heard a voice that came from the hut in front of him. Welcome, Naruto. Naruto saw the door of the hut open to reveal a man who was in his late 20s. He had red hair tied in a ponytail at the back. The man was wearing a traditional red kimono, white hakama, and slippers. A katana was carefully tucked on the sash he wore as a belt. What stood out the most was the X-shaped scar on his cheek. I didn't expect to meet anyone inside my soul or wherever this place is, said Naruto as he smiled at the man in front of him. The man released a carefree laugh, but Naruto could see that the man was a pretty skilled swordsman judging from the aura he exuded. This was a warrior with a deep past like his own. Let's just say that you're one unique boy and leave it at that, said the man as he walked out of the hut and closed the door behind him. The man walked towards Naruto before stopping a few feet away. My name is Himura Kenshin, and I'm happy that you finally made your way here. I despaired that you wouldn't discover this place, but I'm glad that you did. Himura-san, said Naruto as a form of greeting. He didn't know how to greet the man anyway, so he went with tradition as a form of respect. Can you explain to me why you're here in my soul? Simple, I am your past. You might say that I was you and reincarnated into you as a weapon, Kenshin explained with a smile on his face. What? You're my weapon? Naruto exclaimed in shock, unable to believe that the man in front of him was the weapon that his soul chose. It wasn't possible, or was it? Yes, though I doubt you would be able to turn me into what you see me as right now when you actually combine your ki and Riryoku, but I would say that you would end up with a weapon version of me, Kenshin said with a grin. But how is that possible? Said Naruto in disbelief. Kenshin simply shrugged. I don't know, but it is possible when you're concerned. Let's just say that you're unique and leave it at that, since no one would be able to provide an accurate answer to that question. It would be safe to say that you will be the first to be able to create a weapon with a soul that is linked to yours, though I am quite sure that your descendants would be able to do the same thing if taught properly. I see. So what happens now? Asked Naruto, eager to know where this was going. Before you manifest your weapon, let me first tell you what I would become. said Kenshin, causing Naruto to nod. I would become your weapon, or in this case, I would be in your weapon. Its soul, so to speak, which would grant me the ability to talk to you and you to me if the situation demands it. If my guess is right, then you will manifest a weapon similar to my own. Naruto eyed the sword on Kenshin's hip. The man saw this and grinned before placing a hand on the hilt. Yes, Naruto, this is my weapon that served me well when I was alive. Now, once you manifest me in weapon form in the real world, I will be teaching you everything you need to know about swordsmanship. In this case, I will teach you my style, the Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu, explained Kenshin. Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu? I am not familiar with that style, Naruto answered truthfully. He read a bunch of Kenjutsu scrolls in the Konoha library during his nighttime visits, and he didn't see any reference to that style in all the scrolls there, though it was possible that the style belonged to another hidden village. You wouldn't, Kenshin agreed. It is a pretty rare style during my time. I don't know what happened to the world, but all I can say that only a select few know of this style. What made Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu a secret style is the fact that it can only be passed on from master to apprentice. There is no school to teach it to the masses. It is a powerful style, so masters in the arts would choose a worthy apprentice to pass it on to. And you chose me to become your apprentice of sorts? Naruto asked curiously. Kenshin nodded in agreement. It would be safe to say that Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu is a non-existent style at this point in time, but I don't want it to disappear from the world altogether. You, Uzumaki Naruto, will be the next master of the Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu under my tutelage, declared Kenshin as he removed the katana from his hip and held it out to Naruto, sheath and all. Now, it's time that you manifest a weapon that reflects your soul. Come, Uzumaki Naruto, take this sword and let your weapon be made. Naruto nodded and gave Kenshin a smile before stepping forward and grabbed the hilt of the katana. Their katana glowed red then white before his vision faded. Naruto opened his eyes and groaned. His body felt as if it was run over by something big and heavy. He realized that he was depleted of both ki and Riryoku. Damn, what happened? Asked Naruto to no one in particular. I don't know, Naruto, but you did something alright. You might want to check your hand, said Kurama with a bit of awe. Naruto looked down and gasped at the weapon on his lap. It looked the same as the sword Kenshin presented to him while he met his past self in a trance. The katana was roughly 2.5 feet in length, and Naruto admired the craftsmanship of his soul weapon. He grabbed the sheath with his left hand and the hilt with his right. Slowly, he pulled at the hilt to check out the blade. Whoa! This is no ordinary katana. Why in the kami's name is the bladed edge on the blunt side? Exclaimed Naruto as he started incredulously at the sword in his hand. Because that is what the samurais in my time call a sakabutsu, came Kenshin's voice from his mind. What the heck was that? Shouted Kurama in shock when the voice echoed across Naruto's mindscape. Himura-san? Asked Naruto, ignoring the shocked Kurama. Indeed I am, but please call me Kenshin, said Kenshin in amusement. Where in the world did that voice come from? Exclaimed Kurama in surprise. The bijou was rooting around in Naruto's mind to find the source of the voice to no avail. Kurama, meet Kenshin. Kenshin, Kurama. Kenshin is the soul of my sword, and he already informed me in advance that he would be able to talk to me if needed. Naruto informed Kurama before launching into the story on how he met Kenshin while he was in a trance. I see, Kurama said finally after hearing the story. You don't do things by half, do you, Naruto? Do you expect him to, Kurama-san? Kenshin quipped in an amused voice. No, I don't expect him to do normal. Nothing is ever normal about my container. So I guess I will be sharing Naruto's head with you from now on, at Kenshin? Not really. I will only manifest my voice if needed, but I would be dormant in the sword where Naruto can wake me up if needed. Now are you ready for the next step, Naruto? Asked Kenshin, preparing what he was about to do next. Next step? Naruto asked, confused. Yes, now that you have manifested me as a weapon. The next step is to bond with it, and allowing me to teach you the Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu. Suffice to say, I will be dumping the entirety of the style into your head so you will know everything about it. However, you need to practice it to commit it to muscle memory. Knowing the style is one thing, using it, however, is purely another matter entirely. I agree. So why don't we get started, Kenshin? Let's. I want you to meditate and give me control over your mind as I transfer all you need to know about my style. It might take a while considering that Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu is one of the most complicated styles in existence. Well, whatever you're planning, I'm ready, Naruto declared before closing his eyes and going into a meditative state, preparing himself for the ride of his life. A 7-year-old Naruto woke up to the blaring of his alarm clock. With a tired yawn, he reached out to the noisy item and punched the snooze button with a fist that effectively shut it up. However, it was already too late since it already woke him up. Sighing, he rose from his bed in a sitting position and rubbed the grit from his eyes. Today was the day that he would be going to Training Ground 44, or lovingly called Forest of Death by some ANBU, to practice his skills. Practicing his skills in his secret training ground was good, but having moving opponents that could kill you was better. Deciding to get this day over and done with, he pushed himself off the bed and went straight to the bathroom for his daily morning ritual. It was half an hour later that Naruto exited his bathroom and went to his closet to get his wardrobe for the day. Ever since he met Kenshin and his subsequent training with him in the Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu sword style, Naruto started emulating the man mainly in how he dressed. He now wore a royal blue kimono and white hakama. Instead of the sandals, he decided to wear a pair of Geta sandals since he found it comfortable. To complete the outfit, he pulled out an orange scarf from one of the drawers and placed it around his neck and adjusted it so that it would hide his mouth and the whiskers on his cheeks. Lastly, he pulled out his beloved Sakabatu and tucked it behind the sash on his hip. With that done, he exited his bedroom and made his way to the kitchen to fix himself a simple breakfast. He wasn't much of a cook, but he got by with his limited skills in the culinary arts. While he was enjoying his breakfast of pancakes and bacon, he dived into the memory of what happened after getting his sword and having the entirety of the sword style dumped into his head. It was one hell of an experience, and wouldn't want to have a repeat of it anytime soon. Getting the entirety of the Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu sword style dumped into his head wasn't a pleasant experience. He remembered passing out from the strain only to wake up a few hours later with a huge migraine. Thankfully, Kurama got rid of it but warned him that it wasn't a good idea to overload his brain with so much information since it could only take so much even if he had exemplary control over his mindscape. After getting rid of the throbbing pain in his head, Naruto spent the rest of the day going through the various lessons he got from Kenshin, not in actual practice but more as an introduction to explain the style and technique to him. Naruto was amazed at the power of Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu. Instead of brute force like most kenjutsus were based at, the style that Kenshin taught him was mostly based on speed and quick attacks. However, there were a few techniques included in the style that specialized in power and was often used as a last resort if anything else. According to Kenshin, the Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu sword style was invented a long time ago to defeat multiple enemies, making it the only style in the world that could negate a swordsman's weakness in dealing multiple opponents at the same time. The style utilized godlike speed and agility to get under the guard of different opponents and attack with pinpoint accuracy. Masters of this style were said to have gained a sort of clairvoyant ability that allowed them to predict their opponent's moves and create a counterattack in a split second. Kenshin informed Naruto that it would take years of constant practice and battle experience to achieve this level, though he didn't doubt that Naruto would reach that level in a matter of years due to his prodigious talent. There was also a drawback to using Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu. Due to the continuous use of godlike speed, the human body would eventually break down until to such a point that they could no longer use it or pick up a sword again and fight at their peak. Fortunately for Naruto, his physiology made him immune to this drawback, so Kenshin wasn't worried in letting his owner learn it. Naruto was also fortunate that he had his other techniques to supplement the style considering how undeveloped his body was. Shunpa would be used as a means to attain godlike speed until Naruto's muscles were strong enough to produce the necessary strength and endurance to achieve it physically. Having Ki would also be a great boon to the blonde since it would give him the added insurance of extra strength and speed to achieve the minimum requirement of the ancient sword style. With that in mind, he spent the rest of the months going through the various katas and techniques of the Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu and committing them to muscle memory. In most cases, he was good enough with the style, but he was far away from being a master at it. If he continued with his training regimen, Kenshin told him that it would take a year and a half to fully master the style, which would make him ready to perform its two ultimate techniques, the Kuzuryuzen, Nine-Headed Dragon Flash, and its Batojutsu counterattack, the Amikikaru Rya no Hiramek, Flash of the Heavenly Flying Dragon. This was one of the reasons why he was on his way to the Forest of Death. He needed live opponents to practice his techniques if he wanted to be proficient at it. Training dummies could only give him so much experience. If he wanted to be the best in his chosen kenjutsu style, then he needed live enemies to play with. Since it was still too early and he wasn't in a relative hurry to get to his destination, Naruto decided to forego using Shunpa and just walk there since it was a beautiful morning. Despite the fact that the villagers hated his guts, he was no longer affected by it. He exited his apartment and locked the door behind him before leaving the rundown compound. He walked through the slums in a sedate pace while carefully observing the people around him. He wasn't disappointed as his assumptions regarding the villagers were proven correct. When he was in sight of the crowd, everyone started whispering things about him. They didn't bother to lower their volume since it was obvious that they wanted to be heard. Fortunately for them, the villagers didn't confront him, or they would enjoy a hands-on experience to what he could do. He just walked and ignored the taunts while enjoying the cool morning air cooling his body. It didn't take him long to arrive at his destination, which was relatively outside the village considering the forest's reputation. In front of him was a large chakra-reinforced iron fence that blocked his path from reaching his destination. Smirking slightly, Naruto easily jumped to the very top of the fence, which was a good 20 feet up, and landed on the top without so much as a grunt. He looked at the forest for a few seconds, admiring the gigantic trees that was said to have been created by the Shodai Hokage, Senju Hashirama, when he founded Konoha. The Forest of Death was well known in the village as a haven to many large animals, predators that shinobis feared to face. It was said that the life-giving chakra that the Shodaime used to create the forest bled to the animals, making them bigger and stronger than they normally would. This theory was further proven upon the existence of man-sized tigers, insects, and other animals that considered the deadly forest their home. Naruto was excited to explore the forest and meet these so-called predators. "Excited, aren't you?" said Kurama. "Of course. It's not every day that you discover that the village hidden in the leaf had its own version of a wilderness training ground," replied Naruto with a smirk. "Besides, Kenshin said I need live opponents to practice my skills in Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu if I wanted to be a master. With the lack of choices, I would say that large animals that would love to eat me whole are the next best thing." "You're correct. I don't think your surrogate grandfather would love it if you use his shinobis as training dummies for your many techniques. Judging from Kenshin's description of them, the techniques would pack quite a punch," Kurama commented as the Bijou recalled the various conversations he had with the sword spirit in regards to the style's many techniques. "You have a point there. Besides, I want to keep my skills hidden even if I do trust the old man to keep them. He might love the fact that I can now defend myself, but I wouldn't put it past the council to try to get rid of me just because I started defending myself," Naruto said bitterly, remembering the old farts in the council who was adamant in putting him to death. Strangely enough, it was only the civilian side of the council who hated him, while the shinobi council didn't. The latter either treated him like a comrade or neutrally in the case of the Hyuga clan. "Speaking of which, what are you going to do tomorrow? It's your 8th birthday, and you know that the villagers tend to come at you with a vengeance during that time. Now that you mentioned it, I think your birthday coincides with the Fox Festival to celebrate the Yondaime's victory over me," Kurama said with a grin. It made him angry that these people would think that a powerful Bijou like him would be defeated easily by a mere human, though Kurama could never deny the fact that the Yondaime was a powerful foe, and had succeeded in a feat that only Senju Hashirama was able to accomplish with his bloodline, Mokuton. "We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Besides, I can always hide out here in the Forest of Death if I have to. Besides, I don't think the villagers would be stupid to go into a place that shinobis feared to tread," Naruto remarked before jumping down from the fence, landing on the ground without a sound with a small burst of Riryoku to slow down his fall. A bloodthirsty grin made its way onto his face when he realized something. "However, I wouldn't say no to have a crack at them if they do turn up. After all, self-defense isn't a crime, right?" "Is it me or you're getting a bit bloodthirsty?" said Kurama with the same grin on his face. "It must be your influence rubbing on me," Naruto said casually as he strolled into the forest without a care in the world, hand on Kenshin's hilt just in case a predator would suddenly attack him from the shadow. "Who cares? As long as we both have fun, being bloodthirsty is the least of your problems," Kurama said with a slight tinge of amusement in his mental voice which made Naruto smirk. "Correct, Kurama. Definitely correct," replied Naruto as he drew Kenshin when a large tiger sprung out of the shadows with fangs and claws ready to render him into shreds of meat. Naruto didn't see or sense another person wearing a blank mask observing him from the shadow of the trees. Deep in the Forest of Death, Naruto was having a time of his life. On his second hour of being in Training Ground 44, he was ambushed and attacked by many of its dangerous denizens, giving him a workout while having fun in the process. Scattered around him were unconscious predators ranging from tigers to large snakes, all knocked out by the blonde swordsman. Naruto channeled a bit of ki into his legs and jumped high into the air to dodge a rage-powered charge from a 6-foot-tall tiger who wanted nothing more than destroy the person who downed many of its kin. Naruto righted himself in the air with his sword held over his left shoulder, preparing himself for his next technique. "Riot Suzen! Dragon Hammer Flash!" shouted Naruto as he fell on top of the rampaging tiger, landing a double-handed sword strike on the animal's neck. Since he was using a reverse-edged sword, instead of decapitating the tiger, he simply knocked it unconscious. Naruto was thankful of his relatively harmless blade, and its incapability to kill since he didn't want to kill any of these beasts. After all, it wouldn't do to run out of sparring partners since he planned to come back for more. Well, maybe a few days later once the animals were fully recovered from being clobbered silly. The powerful denizens were a poor substitute to shinobi skills, but being attacked on all sides in numbers was a good workout in his book. Landing beside the downed tiger, he swung around when he felt something coming at him from behind at high speed. Without thought, he slammed Kenshin on the ground and shouted his next technique. Dori Yuzin! Earth Dragon Flash! From the impact point, various rocks and earthen debris erupted and hitting the large snake who was about to swallow him whole. The force of the multiple impacts caused the snake to hiss in pain and wasn't aware of the blonde's next move. Ryu Sosen, Garami! Dragon Net Flash! Knowing, Naruto whispered as he used Shunpa to disappear from his spot and appeared immediately in front of the snake before landing a ki-enhanced blow on its head that knocked it unconscious. You know, you're getting good at those techniques Kenshin taught you, commented Kurama since the bijou was carefully watching its containers wreaking havoc on the local wildlife. Thanks, Kurama, said Naruto as he landed on the ground in front of the downed snake and checking out the devastation he caused to the local denizens of Training Ground 44. He replaced Kenshin back on its sheath since he could no longer sense anything around him. However, I don't like the fact that I'm still physically weak to properly use these techniques unless I use ki to enhance my speed and strength. It's expected, Naruto. You're still physically undeveloped to produce powerful attacks. Your saving grace is the ability to use ki to enhance your strength and Riryoku to boost your speed. Without it, you would be left with nothing behind your knowledge of Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu. Don't worry though, I'm working on the solution, so to speak. Oh? Do tell. Naruto asked curiously, wanting to know what his tenant was planning. Thanks to your permission, I am slowly enhancing your muscles and bones to achieve similar results. Even if they are still undeveloped, I'm making your muscles and bones denser to improve your physical strength. Give me a week to work on it, and I'll make sure that you are able to have the strength of a fully developed teenager, explained Kurama with a grin. You can do that? How? Naruto exclaimed in amazement. Simple. With me inside you, I can direct my potent chakra directly to your muscles and slowly improve them. Think of it as a direct application of your regenerative powers. Instead of removing the damage, I am enhancing them to put them in peak performance. Naruto was amazed at the fox was doing. He could never deny the fact that being younger, despite his skills, gave him a physical disadvantage. However, with the fox changing his physiology to that of a teenager despite his age, that would put him on par with a genin or maybe even a chunin. Thanks, Kurama, Naruto said happily, though he paused when he realized something. Hey, Kurama. I just thought of something. I know that those who have a bijou sealed inside them tend to use their tenant's chakra. Does this also mean that I can use yours if I need them? Yes, you can, but I suggest that you don't. I may be able to enhance your muscles and bones, but your chakra coils need to develop on their own. If I tamper with it, then it is possible that they would be destroyed due to my potent chakra, and I'm already channeling small amounts of it while I'm enhancing your body to avoid damaging your tenketsus and chakra pathways. Despite the fact that you had a sort of immunity to it when I was sealed inside you and your coils had adapted to it splendidly, a large amount of my chakra into your system would be dangerous at this time. Give it around 4 to 5 years more before you attempt it once your pathways matured. But for now, stick with your own. Besides, you're already formidable without it. No worries about that, Naruto said with a shudder. Thanks to his nighttime forays into the Konoha library, he learned that chakra pathways were a serious thing to a shinobi. This was one of the reasons why the Konoha Academy would slowly ease the students in the use of chakra until their pathways adjusted to the strain. Too much while undeveloped would destroy the pathways and destroy a person's chance in becoming a shinobi. In Naruto's case, all of his abilities would be destroyed if he wasn't careful. I have no plans in using your chakra as of now. I'm just curious, that's all. Good. I'll tell you when you're ready for my chakra, since you would undoubtedly need it in the future. Anyway, I suggest you concentrate since you have more company coming. Huh! Was all Naruto's reply when he sensed several presences surround him. He looked around and discovered that his conversation with Kurama made him unaware of the fact that some tigers and snakes were closing in on him from all sides. He cursed his inattentiveness and vowed not to do so in the future. It would prove to be deadly, especially when faced with an opponent. Inwardly cursing, he loosened Kenshin from its sheath with his thumb and settled into a Batajutsu stance, waiting for his opponents to make the first move. Shimura Danzo, one of the veterans of the Third Great Shinobi War and an advisor to the Hokage, was currently sitting behind his desk, reading a report from one of his root operatives outside Konoha. Despite the fact that the Sandaime Hokage explicitly ordered him to get rid of the program, he maintained root from the shadows and making use of his emotionless army to protect the village from harm. Many would view Danzo a warmonger, a tyrant in his ways of battle. However, he wasn't really a bad guy who disregarded the Hokage's orders, which would label him a traitor if nothing else. In truth, he did so because he wanted to protect his beloved village from harm. It was this zealous goal that made him create his now hidden army to protect Konoha from the shadows without the Sandame's knowledge. Root had been privy to many assassination missions deemed necessary by their one-eyed leader to make sure that Konohagakure no Sato wouldn't be subjected to a battle that it couldn't survive from. No, Danzo made it his ninja way, to make sure that Konoha survived the harsh reality of shinobi life. Also, Danzo knew that Sarutobi was aware of the Root program still existing, but the lack of evidence made it impossible for the aged leader to confront him about it. Danzo was brought out of his musings when one of his trusted spies in the village appeared, kneeling in front of him. "I have news, Danzo-sama," said the blank-masked Root operative. Danzo immediately recognized the Root shinobi in front of him. This particular one had a special assignment, an assignment that the one-eyed warmonger deemed necessary, to keep an eye on Konoha's sole Jinchuriki, Uzumaki Naruto. "Report," Danzo said tersely. "I have finally located Uzumaki Naruto. We haven't been able to monitor his destination since he started disappearing from his apartment in the slums a year and a half ago. Today, he left his apartment early in the morning and headed straight for Training Ground 44. He is very different from what he was a year and a half ago, Danzo-sama," the Root operative reported in monotone, without a hint of emotions in his voice. It constantly vexed Danzo when they discovered that the Jinchuriki had a method of disappearing from his watchers and they didn't know what it was. There was a village-wide panic among his Root agents when they discovered that Uzumaki disappeared and they weren't able to find him until their target appeared again in his apartment, as if he was there all the time. This was a constant occurrence for more than a year, and it annoyed the warmonger to the point of pulling out his hairs in frustration. "What is he doing in that place?" said Danzo with a curious frown on his face. "Also, what do you mean he is different?" "Just that, Danzo-sama. Unlike the Uzumaki Naruto that we saw a year and a half ago, this Uzumaki Naruto is quite different. This Naruto was now garbed in a typical samurai fashion, a kimono and hakama. He now took to wearing a katana on his hip. I followed him to the Forest of Death and was privy to his use of it. He demonstrated a powerful kenjutsu style that destroyed all of the predators in the area that foolishly attacked him." "A powerful style? Elaborate," Danzo demanded. He didn't know what happened to the Kyuubi Jinchuriki within the span they weren't able to trail him, but wherever the boy ended up, it seemed that the boy changed. And it was a big change at that if the boy was now carrying a sword and knew how to use it. "Hi, Danzo-sama. The style he used seems to rely on speed, allowing him to down multiple opponents at once. It is a style that I don't recognize and is undoubtedly powerful in its own right. What puzzled me is the katana he uses. It seemed to have a reversed edge, making sure that his opponents aren't killed." "A reverse-edged sword, you say?" Danzo said in surprise. Such a sword was mentioned in history, and was no longer being used since such a harmless blade had no use in a war-torn nation. Not only is it a stupid sword considering that it doesn't kill its opponents, but it is a sword that is no longer being used today. "Tell me, is he using that chakra?" he inquired with a raised eyebrow, knowing that the operative in front of him specifically knew what he was asking. After all, this operative was specifically chosen because of his unique ability, a sensor that would allow him to detect chakra in its raw form. He was chosen to ensure that they were made aware if Uzumaki Naruto had tapped into the Bijuu's potent power. "No, Danzo-sama. Whatever Uzumaki did, he wasn't using the Bijuu's chakra. In fact, he wasn't using chakra at all. I don't sense any chakra being used during his fight with the predators of Training Ground 44. From the looks of it, everything he did was pure skill alone." Danzo nodded and leaned back on his high-backed chair as he digested the information revealed to him. Whatever happened to the Jinchuriki, it made the boy strong enough to lay waste to the denizens of the Forest of Death that even Anbu feared to face. Hell, even his Root operatives stayed out of the forest since the animals there were known to gang up on unsuspecting shinobis and feasted on their remains. Whatever happened to Uzumaki Naruto made the boy strong that he considered Training Ground 44 a playpen of sorts. Where did the boy get this power? Where did the boy learn his skills? Uzumaki Naruto was a mystery that Shimura Danzo would do anything to unravel. Keep an eye on him for now. Gather as much information as you can and make sure you're not detected. We don't know what he is capable of, so you need to take extra precautions that you're not discovered. I wouldn't put it past the boy to report your presence to Sarutobi, and the old monkey would use such revelation to bring down Root. "Hi, Danzo-sama," said the Root operative before disappearing from the room without a sound. Danzo looked at the document in front of him with a picture of a whiskered-faced, blonde boy. "Uzumaki Naruto. What secrets do you possess?" Danzo said out loud, his thoughts trying to come up with answers to many of his questions. Naruto was currently catching his breath on his perch on top of one of the large trees in the Forest of Death. The second wave of attack was intense. There were more than a dozen tigers and snakes ready to make mincemeat out of him. Thankfully, with liberal use of Shunpa and Kenshin, he survived the clash and retreated to his current perch to rest up. He decided to stay in the forest for the night, since he had no plans of going back to the village and face the current mob that was a common sight every time his birthday rolled in. It was official, the blonde hated October 10th with a passion. Naruto looked around and an idea manifested itself. I wonder if I can make a tree house and start living here from now on? Aside from predators, it is practically a peaceful place to hang out. Naruto mused out loud as he enjoyed the silence of the trees around him. Nothing is stopping you. After all, no one comes here, well except during those exams that Konoha sometimes hosts, replied Kurama in the silence of his mind. Good point. I think I'll explore the place first before I set up shop here. I know that there is a section of the forest that no shinobis tread because of the dangerous animals that live there. If I find it comfortable and of relative safety, then I might turn it into my new training ground and home, said Naruto as he stood up from his perch and patted the grime off his outfit. He recalled the map he found in the Konoha library depicting the different sections of Training Ground 44. If his sense of direction was correct, the S-class sector was north from where he was standing. Nodding to himself as he made up his mind, Naruto took a step and disappeared using Shunpa to check out the place. He didn't notice the bewildered root operative who watched him disappear from the branch he was perched on. Naruto was on the highest branch in one of the trees in the S-class sector of the Forest of Death. He was awed at the sight in front of him. Never in his wildest dreams would such a place exist in a dangerous forest. Below him was a large clearing, larger than his hidden training ground outside Konoha. Instead of the dense undergrowth that marred the forest floor, the clearing was filled with wild flowers in full bloom. Surrounding it were large trees that acted as a canopy to shield the forest floor and its denizens from the wrath of nature. The clearing in itself was a wonder of nature. A small waterfall decorated one corner with a small river leading out of the clearing to parts unknown. Various human-sized boulders dotted the place, which looked like a Zen garden from above. Overall, Naruto liked what he saw and definitely had the potential to become his home away from home. He jumped down from his perch and used a bit of his Riryoku to slow down his fall. Unlike the spiritual platforms he loved to use to complement his speed technique, this method acted as a buffer, lowering him to the ground slowly against the pull of gravity. No matter how high he jumped from, he would always float down like a feather. He touched down on the flowered ground and started to walk towards the waterfall whose beauty captivated him. Considering that he was in the S-class sector of the forest, he sent out a pulse of Riryoku which traveled a few hundred meters around him to determine other presences aside from his own. The pulse returned a negative, making him happy that he didn't have to keep his guard up in such a beautiful place. He jumped on top of one of the biggest boulders and observed the place. Naruto realized that it was similar to Kenshin's forest clearing in his soul. Except for the waterfall and the man-sized boulders, everything was the same. He pondered a bit on why it was similar, which was 1 in a million chance of reflecting reality, but decided to push it away from his mind. He didn't care if it was similar to the place that depicted his soul. The important part was that it was. He didn't need any other answers aside from that. It was an hour of enjoying the tranquility of the place that he decided to push through with his plans. If he wanted to make a home here, then he would need supplies. Wood was in abundance considering that he was in a forest. He made a note to cut some trees for lumber away from the clearing so not to mar the beauty of the place. Also, he needed construction supplies as well if he wanted to begin. He made a mental accounting of the status of his allowance he received monthly from the Hokage. It wasn't enough, and he barely had enough for his food consumption. If he wanted to make a home here, then he needed money. Why don't you go rob a few bandits if you really need the money? I doubt it if you can find a place in the village that you could get a decent work for it considering your status as my container, suggested Kurama, a bit excited at the prospect of Naruto setting up shop in such a wonderful place. Bandits? Asked Naruto in confusion. I seem to remember a particular conversation of the Hokage with some jounin when you were hanging out in his office during your early years. You have probably forgotten it, but I didn't since I had nothing better to do than immerse myself in your memories. Bandits tend to camp around near the highway of Konoha to other countries to rob merchants of their hard-earned money. If you can find a bandit camp, then I'm sure that your monetary problems are solved. I could do that. Naruto mused as he rolled the idea in his mind before a grin made its way onto his face. Besides, I think it is my civic duty as a citizen of Konoha to help out with its bandit problem, right? Correct. Kurama immediately agreed in a sage-like voice. Besides, it is only right that you help your surrogate grandfather deal with the bandits since you owe him so much for helping you out in the past 8 years. I definitely agree, Kurama. After all, the fewer bandits we have around Konoha, the less paperwork the old man would have, said Naruto before lapsing into a laughing fit echoed by the bijou in his mindscape. He was able to control himself a minute later and disappeared from the clearing without a trace. Hiruzen Sarutobi was currently enjoying a relaxing day in the Hokage office since he was finished with his current batch of paperwork. He was brought out of his musings when a knock came from the door. "Come in," said the Hokage as he settled himself behind his desk and put on his game face, so to speak. His secretary, Akiko, peeked in and informed him that there were 3 jounins looking for him. "Let them in please, Akiko-san." 3 jounins filed in with their respective genin teams before standing in attention in front of his desk. "Good afternoon, Hokage-sama," greeted the 3 jounins with a bow followed closely by their genin charges. "At ease. Weren't you 3 supposed to be on a mission from this morning?" Sarutobi asked, confused. These 3 jounins took their respective missions of exterminating 3 different bandit camps that surrounded Konoha. In fact, this was a monthly mission considering that bandits tend to crop up to create problems with the local business community. After all, it was bad for business to let bandits roam the countryside unopposed, and the village had a budget for it just in case the situation came up. "Yes, Hokage-sama. My genins and I encountered a bit of problem when we arrived at the bandit camp that we were supposed to exterminate," said the jounin, who immediately saw his comrades stiffen at hearing his report. "From the looks of it, the rest of you had the same problem as well." This got a nod from the 2 other jounins. The Hokage frowned at this. What problem could crop up from a simple extermination mission? "What seems to be the problem?" the Sandaime asked the trio. "When we reached the bandit camp, my genin cell and I were prepared to take them out. However, when he scouted the camp, we found all the bandits unconscious and all their possessions stolen. I was able to wake one of them up, but he couldn't tell me anything aside from the fact that someone knocked him unconscious without knowing who it was. From the other bandits, all they felt was a gust of wind and a sharp pain from the back of their necks before darkness claimed them," reported the first jounin. "I also have the same problem, Hokage-sama," said the second jounin. "Same here," the last quipped with amusement, earning him a glare from the 2. Was the reply of the Sandaime as he rubbed his goatee. "So let me get this straight, 3 bandit camps that you 3 were supposed to exterminate were all down for the count when you got there with all their loot gone." He got a nod from all 3. "Any idea what happened?" The second jounin coughed before speaking, making everyone's attention shift to him, causing him to blush slightly. "After making sure that they were secured to avoid runaways, I decided to check for signs of attacks. I found out that all of the bandits were hit behind the neck by a blunt object, though the marks were clearly that of a sword, knocking them out. In fact, all of them were hit in the same place." "I found the same thing, Hokage-sama." The third jounin added his 2 cents in the report. "From the looks of it, all 3 bandit camps were hit by the same person. I know a bit of kenjutsu, and I could safely say that whoever this person is, he or she knew what they were doing. They were hit strong enough to knock them out but not enough to kill them." The Hokage nodded while processing the information he received. "So we have a kenjutsu user somewhere around Konoha hitting bandit camps. From what you 3 said, it seemed that the aim of this person was to steal from them. How ironic, bandits getting robbed," said the Hokage in amusement. "Are we going to do something about this, Hokage-sama?" asked the second jounin, itching to find out who robbed them of a mission. "Not at the moment. From your report, it seemed that this person only robbed bandits and no one else. Such is the case, it would be stupid of us to do something about it since that person is technically not causing any problems. In fact, that person is doing us a favor. However, if we receive similar reports of merchants being attacked, then we are going to take action," declared the Hokage, since a bandit robbing bandits wasn't really their concern. It was simple power play after all, so it was nothing to worry about. "Does this mean that we won't get paid?" said the third jounin, causing the other 2 to look at him. "What? We did go to this mission after all, and we rounded up the bandits even though we didn't do a thing aside from picking them up. Besides, I'm almost out of money and I need to pay this month's rent," he said defensively. This caused everyone to sweat drop at the admission. "Fine," said the Hokage, handing all 3 of them their respective envelopes containing the pay for the mission. They technically finished the mission after all, even if all they did was to round them up. "Here is your payment for the mission. You're free to get another mission since all of you technically finished yours, but if you're not, then you have the rest of the day off." Dismissed. The 3 jounins and their respective genin teams left the office, leaving a perplexed Hokage to ponder the event. Naruto's self-imposed mission of earning money went without a hitch. In the first night, he was lucky to hit 3 bandit camps and looted every valuable item he could find after knocking the occupants unconscious with a well-placed hit on the back of their necks. The items he liberated varied from bolts of cloth, jewelries, food stock, to money chests. Fortunately for him, he had the foresight to acquire a storage scroll from one of the shinobi stores in the village to help carry the items he liberated from the camps. If Naruto was honest with himself, the loot wasn't plenty, but he would make do. Beggars can't be choosers after all. He was thankful that Kurama taught him the Riryoku Pulse to scout the forested areas along the highway of Fire Country until he found the bandit camps that he planned to raid. Considering that he didn't get enough money from the bandits, he decided to spend the rest of the week looking for others until he had enough money for his home in the Forest of Death. The pickings were small, but with all the bandit camps he raided, he had almost 1,000,000 ryo to tide him over, as well as some jewels and items he might find useful in the future. Using the henge he learned from one of the scrolls he pilfered from the Konoha Academy, he disguised himself as a middle-aged man and purchased the necessary supplies for his construction project. He didn't do it all in one day since it would look conspicuous, so he spread the purchases out, like nails and hammer for the first day, tiles for the roof on the next, and so on. Every items he purchased he deposited in one corner of his clearing in the Forest of Death before delving into the chore of harvesting much-needed lumber from a sturdy tree he picked out a few hundred meters away from his clearing. He considered it physical training to cut through the tree using Kenshin's bladed edge, earning him a few grumbling comments from the spirit. Kurama found the spirit's mortification of being used as a construction tool amusing. It was 2 weeks later that Naruto finally finished his new home in the S-Class sector of Training Ground 44. All in all, he liked what he results. Considering that he wasn't that picky with the design, he modeled it after Kenshin's hut. It had 2 rooms and a kitchen, as well as living room. He had to take a trip to the Konoha library for some books on construction and architecture to add mechanism of sorts that would allow water from the waterfall to enter a series of pipes to an indoor well by the kitchen. It had a system of pipes that would make sure that it won't overflow, letting the excess water flow out from another pipe to the river. Waste not, want not after all. He used the leftover lumber to erect a fence around the clearing, high enough to discourage any of the denizens to stray into his beloved home. He wasn't worried about that since the time he spent in the clearing, none of the predators came. He was a bit puzzled about that but didn't investigate since it was of no use to find out the cause anyway. To give himself some time off from all the work, he decided to visit his precious people in the village. First, he made his way to the Ichirakus and enjoyed bowls after bowls of their delicious ramen. Even when he was training, he made a point to visit the quaint ramen stand and the company of Tuchi and Ayam, who both he considered as family, aside from their delicious ramen, of course. It was 2 hours after lunch that he made his way to the Hokage Tower to visit his surrogate grandfather. It had been quite a while since he saw the Hokage and he missed the old man's company. He entered the building after giving the Chunins on guard a smile, which they returned. Most of the shinobis in the village didn't hate him for what he carried in his gut. In fact, quite a few of them were sympathetic to his cause by chasing away the mobs that were after him, helping him buy food from the stores that refused him services, and so on. He even made a few friends from the ANBU that guarded him while he was young, notably dog, cat, bear, snake, and weasel, though the latter was nowhere to be found after his 6th birthday. This confused him a bit but assumed that he might had a long-term mission or something that took him away from the village. Naruto entered the building and made his way to the top floor, totally ignoring the secretary who was glaring at him. Again, it seemed that the civilians were the only people in the village who hated him. He just shrugged it off since he didn't really care about them anymore. He knocked on the door to the Hokage's office and getting a grunt from the other side. Amused, Naruto entered the office and closed the door behind him. He saw his surrogate grandfather busying himself with the piles of paperwork on his desk. "Good afternoon, old man," greeted Naruto as he made his way to one of the chairs in front of the Hokage's desk. The Hokage grunted before putting down the document he was reading to look at his surrogate grandson. "Good afternoon, Naruto-kun. What brings you here? It's been quite a while since you visited and I was quite worried," said the Hokage while giving the whiskered blonde a smile. "Just visiting, Gigi. It's been a while since I've visited. I've been quite busy as of late," replied Naruto, returning the old man's smile. He looked at the piles of paperwork on the desk curiously. "I think your paperwork grew, Gigi." "Tell me about it," said the Hokage while eyeing the innocent paper on his desk with disgust. "I don't know why I took this job when the Yondaime passed away. I forgot how annoying the paperwork was." Naruto laughed at his surrogate grandfather's plight. "What got you so annoyed anyway?" asked Naruto as he picked up one of the papers on the desk. He read it and discovered that it was an accounting report for the running of the village. He took another document and got the same thing. He turned to the Hokage who was giving him an amused look. "Budget, huh?" Yes. It's the month for it. I swear the civilian council had it in for me. They were supposed to work on this since I am only supposed to work on the shinobi matters. If I didn't know any better, they're getting lazy. You could always give it back to them, I suppose? You're the Hokage for crying out loud. Konoha is a shinobi village, so you should be the one in control. I say you get the council together, tell them the new rules or remind them of their responsibilities, then leave them to stew about it," said Naruto sagely, nodding at the idea since it was good. The aged leader looked at his grandson strangely before a happy grin stole its way into his wrinkled face. "You know, Naruto-kun, that is a pretty good idea. I don't know why I didn't think of that," the Hokage mused in thought while tapping his chin. "I think it's because that you tend to think that you're responsible for everything in this village, Gigi. I mean, sure, you're the leader, but isn't that the reason why you have people working under you?" Naruto pointed out while raising one of his eyebrows. "You're right," agreed the Hokage before giving the blonde a speculative look. "That was a smart way of putting things into perspective, Naruto-kun. I do read, Gigi, and I have a lot of spare time on my hands before I attend the academy in 2 years, so I spend most of it reading anything I could get my hands on. Considering that the shinobi section of the library is out of my reach until I become a genin, I spend most of my time reading history and politics in my spare time." Naruto deadpan, making the Hokage give him a sheepish grin. "You're right. You are a smart kid after all," said the Hokage before giving Naruto a speculative look. "Naruto-kun, why don't you accompany me to Suna next week?" This caught Naruto off guard. The Hokage never asked him to accompany him anywhere outside the village before, and he was surprised at being asked to join an expedition to another village. "Really, Gigi?" He got a nod in reply. "Sure. I would love to go with you, old man. What are we going to do in Suna anyway?" Naruto asked curiously. The Hokage didn't say anything but simply handed Naruto a piece of paper from his desk. Naruto didn't know it, but the Hokage was testing him. Sarutobi was shrewd and he knew intelligence when he saw it, and the boy in front of him had that intelligent look in his blue eyes that spoke of a prodigious mind. Curiously, Naruto took it and read its content before whistling at the information it contained. "To talk about the treaty, huh?" the blonde Jinchuriki said with a raised eyebrow. From the looks of it, the Kazekage wanted to modify the treaty to stop the missions coming from the Wind Daimyo given to Konoha. Now that's weird. Why in the world would their daimyo not give them missions but instead give it to Konoha? That doesn't make sense. I mean, Konoha gets a steady supply of missions from the Fire Daimyo, so why is the Wind Daimyo giving expensive missions to us?" exclaimed Naruto as he handed the document back to the Hokage, who took it with a nod. "How much do you know about the history of Sunagakure, Naruto-kun?" asked the Hokage, further testing the blonde in front of him. He wanted to know the extent of the blonde's intelligence. Considering who the boy's parents was, it was only normal for the boy to be of same caliber as well, or maybe even better. Naruto pondered the question a bit, recalling the history books he read from the library. "Let me see, nothing major aside from the accomplishments of their kage, as well as some of the notable missing nins that they had, like Sasori of the Red Sands for example. Other than that, the only notable history concerning Suna was how they lost during the Third Great Shinobi War before finally going into a treaty with Konoha in order to preserve whatever dignity they had, as well as making sure that they had allies to call in once the other hidden villages decided to wage war on them." The Hokage nodded, pride clearly shining in his eyes. "You're correct, Naruto-kun. Ever since they lost and aligned themselves with the losing side during the Third Great Shinobi War, the Wind Daimyo lost its trust with them. This resulted in the Wind Daimyo giving a bulk of their high-ranked missions to Konoha and leaving the lower-paid ones to Suna. What do you think that Kazekage would want in this meeting?" he asked the blonde, an eyebrow raised as if challenging the boy in front of him to voice out his mind. Naruto saw the challenge and accepted it. He mulled over his answers before voicing it out. "I think that the Kazekage would go into a debate with you concerning this matter. If Konoha informs that Wind Daimyo to give back the missions to Suna, then it would only be probable for him to do so considering our reputation as the strongest in the elemental nations being the victor of the Third Great Shinobi War. However, I think the Kazekage would have to convince you first to do that considering that high-paid mission is a great boon to our economy. If that is the case, then I think the ruler of Suna would put some bargaining chips on the table, something that would entice you to sway the Wind Daimyo to give the missions back to them. What do you think, Gigi?" The Hokage clapped his hands in approval and gave Naruto a look filled with pride which made the boy beam in happiness. "You're correct in that regard, Naruto-kun. But what do you think this bargaining chip would be?" asked the Hokage, enjoying the intelligent conversation he was having with his surrogate grandson. If he knew that Naruto was this smart years ago, then he would have spent more time with him in this very office to help come up with good ideas or tackle some problems with his paperwork. After all, a healthy view of current events would always outweigh the old ones in his head. Tradition had that problem sometimes. I'm not really sure, Gigi. But are we really going to bargain with them on this? I mean, we also need the money from the missions, right? Naruto asked before seeing the Hokage rummage through the piles of paperwork on his desk. The old man seemed to have found what he was looking for before handing it over to him. Naruto looked through it and whistled. I see, from the looks of the budget report, the money coming in from the missions is huge, and even if we do lose money by giving it back to Suna, we are still on the positive. This got a nod from the Hokage, making Naruto think on the potential bargaining chip that the Kazekage would be offering to Konoha to sway the daimyo to their favor. Considering that this is a shinobi village we are talking about, I don't think we are getting imports of supplies from them, right? The Hokage shook his head. To be honest, Naruto-kun, we aren't really getting anything from Suna economically. Due to Konoha's location, everything we need is grown in Fire Country except for a few supplies coming from the minor villages within our borders. In fact, the only notable imports we have are healing herbs from Takigakure. That said, Konoha is self-sufficient unless there is need to import rare supplies from the outside, explained the Hokage, making Naruto nod. If that is the case, then the Kazekage would offer shinobi techniques in payment for swaying the daimyo's mind to their liking. What is Suna's specialty? Naruto asked curiously. He was really enjoying learning a thing or two about politics from the old man. Learning it from the books during his nighttime sojourn into the library was one thing, learning from the expert was simply better. Let me see, Suna is well known for their futon jutsus, wind techniques, poisons and antidotes, as well as their kagutsu no jutsu, puppet technique, informed the Hokage after some thought. If that is the case, I would say futon jutsus then, or even some knowledge on their poisons and antidotes. I doubt they would be willing to part with the secret of their puppet techniques since it is unique to them. Naruto mused before setting down the documents he was holding on the desk. Do we have any futon users in Konoha? A few, but these shinobis only had minor affinities with it. The only person who had a strong affinity to futon is my son, Asuma, who is currently part of the Fire Guardians. Naruto whistled. Fire Guardians were the daimyo's personal guards and considered to be powerful shinobis in their own specific field. If the old man's son was a part of it, then he was definitely strong. Nice, Naruto said with a nod. So when are we going to Suna? I need to meet with my advisors, as well as the council to discuss this matter, though I would tell them what you told me to get the ball running. If things go as planned, we would be leaving in 4 days, more or less. The Hokage informed him. Naruto nodded with a grin. His excitement was leaking out of him in waves. Well, if that's the case, then I'd better get ready, said Naruto before standing up from his seat, grin still plastered on his face. Just send one of your ANBU guards to find me if it's time for us to go. The Hokage nodded before giving his surrogate grandson a smile. I will, Naruto-kun. Enjoy your day. The blonde Jinchuriki left with a grin and a spring on his step. He couldn't wait to get out of Konoha and check out other places that he hadn't been to, even if his destination was Suna and nowhere else. Unlike his one-week trip outside Konoha walls to raid the bandit camps, this trip was purely for sightseeing purposes, and he couldn't wait to get out of the village and immerse himself in the experience. It took 4 days for the Sandaime to finalize everything with the council before they started their trip to Suna. Naruto, being the excitable boy that he was despite his now cold persona, packed everything into a storage scroll he purchased using his alter ego. While he was packing the stuff, his attention inadvertently settled on the seal on the scroll and his interest was piqued. In his sudden interest to learn about Fuinjutsu, he raided the shinobi section of the Konoha library for any information he could find on the subject. Of course, he did this under the cover of darkness since he would be raiding the rarer scrolls in the shinobi section of the library. Thanks to his abilities, he pulled his heist without a hitch. Naruto discovered that sealing was a very complicated and delicate art, and very dangerous if not properly applied. After a day of study, he was able to properly recreate one of the storage seals that the Yondaime created that would allow him to directly create a storage seal on his skin through a tattoo. In truth, he was lucky to find the book in one of the dust-covered cabinets in the shinobi section devoted to this subject. From the amount of dust, not many shinobis were interested in the sealing arts, so he took the book with him to add to his collection. He was quite sure that no one would miss it. After practicing with the seal tattoo on paper until he perfected it, Naruto immediately applied it on the back of his left hand, where he immediately stored Kenshin inside. Despite how much he loved the Hokage, it wouldn't do for unwanted questions to be asked that he wasn't ready to answer. Besides, it was a great surprise tactic just in case they were attacked, though he doubted it since the Hokage was more than enough to handle any threats, not to mention the bodyguards tagging along for the trip. Naruto didn't know it, but the event that would take place would cement his role in the Elemental Nation, a role that would strike fear in the hearts of many and a legend that would surpass even that of his parents. Naruto reached the northern gate of Konoha to see the Hokage and his 2 bodyguards standing in wait. His curiosity, however, was piqued when he saw a merchant's caravan alongside the group. "Good morning, old man," greeted Naruto with a smile as he approached the Hokage and his group. "Good morning to you too, Naruto. From the looks of it, you're ready for the trip. The orange scarf is a nice touch considering that we would be traveling through a desert when we reach the Suna border," commented the Hokage as he appraised Naruto's outfit, especially the orange scarf wrapped around the blonde's neck. He had gotten used to the blonde's somewhat traditional outfit of kimono, hakama, and geta sandals. It was unique considering that such an outfit was mostly used by the daimyo's court in the capital of Fire Country. Naruto gave his surrogate grandfather a grin and pulled up the scarf to cover his mouth and nose to demonstrate its use. "One of reasons I wear this, Gigi. I know that Suna is well known for its wind and sandstorms, so it's best to be prepared," explained Naruto before pulling down the scarf again since such facial protection wasn't needed as of yet. "Where is your pack, Naruto-kun? Don't tell me you plan to wear only what you're wearing now from here to Suna and back. We will be gone for a month, after all," said the Hokage, noting the absence of any gears on the blonde's person. "No problem, Gigi. I got it covered," said Naruto before pulling out a green scroll from a hidden pocket in his right sleeve. "As you can see, I have everything I need here in this scroll. Storage scrolls are just so cool." The Hokage chuckled and ruffled Naruto's hair in amusement. "Indeed it is, Naruto-kun," the aged leader agreed. "Now before we leave, we will be joining this merchant caravan to Suna since they are going the same way. They requested a team to protect them from bandits, and since we are going the same way, we will be providing that protection." The head of the merchant family approached the Hokage. "And I thank you for such an offer, Hokage-sama," said the man with a respectful bow before turning to Naruto and gave the boy a smile which the blonde returned. "My name is Haruhi Kijo. My family and I are going on a business trip to Suna to peddle our goods, as well as making sure that some of our deals there are still in working order. It is a surprise on my part that the Hokage himself took our request for bodyguards for the trip." Naruto chuckled and gave the aged leader a grin. "I think it is more for his convenience than nothing else, Haruhi-san. I think the old man was getting tired of sitting in his office for too long, so he needed the exercise. Besides, old people need to stretch their old bones once in a while to keep in shape," explained Naruto with a mischievous grin. This comment, however, earned him a bonk on the head from a twitching Hokage. "Ouch. What did you do that for, old man?" "I may be old, Naruto-kun, but I still have some strength in these old bones to put young ones like you in place," said the Hokage in annoyance. Sure, he was old, but he wasn't that old. He still had a few more years in his body before retiring. Fine. You don't have to damage my brain cells for it, you perverted old geezer," grumbled Naruto before dodging another fist to the head. He stuck his tongue out to the Hokage, who was twitching in annoyance. The merchant caravan and the Hokage's bodyguards were snickering in amusement. It didn't take long for the Hokage to sort out the travel papers with the chunins assigned on the gate. When all the signatures were in place, the caravan to Suna departed Konoha with much cheer and excitement, especially for a certain blonde Jinchuriki. On the 3rd day of their travel to Suna, Naruto could help but enjoy the trip. True, it was a bit boring to see nothing but trees as they traversed the road to Wind Country, but the company he was in made the journey enjoyable. Naruto got to know Haruhi's family better, especially little Misao, their adorable 3-year-old daughter. Considering that the blonde lacked social interaction with people his age or younger, having the girl take up his time was a welcome experience. They would spend the rest of the journey either talking or storytelling. It was a good thing that Naruto was well-read since the girl was always demanding new stories for him to tell. Naruto wasn't bothered by the demands. In fact, he dived into her requests with gusto. It was like having a sister, and by extension, a family he never had. Naruto also found the Haruhi elders to be like a family who treated him as such. Haruhi Suki was very motherly to the 2 kids, especially to Naruto, who he treated like a son and didn't spare any expense in mothering him with food and care. Haruhi Kijo, on the other hand, was like a father figure, talking about stuff that Naruto should have learned from a grown-up. All in all, Naruto was happy and vowed to always spend time with the family once they returned to Konoha. If Naruto was honest with himself, he treated the Haruhi family an extension of his own and became his precious people. It was on the 4th day of their trip that disaster struck. The cart that Naruto and the Haruhi family was riding on exploded without any warning, throwing off its passengers to the ground and showering them with debris. The Hokage immediately went into alert and ordered one of his bodyguards to check for survivors. However, they were cut off when 12 shinobis wearing IWA headbands surrounded them, stopping them from leaving the area. Well, it seems that we finally caught you, Hokage-san," said one of the shinobis who was giving the group an evil grin. Who are you and what have you done? The Hokage demanded, prepared to square off with the attackers. Inwardly, however, he was worried. Worried about his surrogate grandson who was riding the cart, and wanted to know how he was faring. He was also worried about the attackers. It seemed that they were well prepared considering their numbers. From the chakra signature, these were Jounin-level shinobis, and it seemed that they have come prepared. The answer to your question is simple, old man. We are the Rock Biter Brigade, and it seemed that our information was correct. It was stupid of you to leave the safety of your village without bringing along enough manpower to protect you in case of an attack. In fact, it was fearless of you to do so. The Jounin answered in a mocking tone. The Hokage tensed, as well as his bodyguards when they heard the group introduce themselves. The Rock Biter Brigade was part of Iwa's elite. Their expertise as assassins was impeccable, and their teamwork was well known throughout the elemental nation. Also, this group was a master of Doton, earth, techniques. He could easily dispatch them, but it would take time he didn't have if he wanted to check on Naruto. The battle started in earnest, a group attacking the Hokage while the rest were taking care of the bodyguards. The trio didn't have time to check the ruined cart. They were in a fierce battle for their lives. Naruto, on the other hand, was unaware of the battle taking place. He groaned when a sudden pain made its way to his left arm as he shifted. He opened his eyes and saw the devastation in front of him. The cart was blown to bits, and the area they were in was littered with debris. His memory kicked in and his eyes opened wide as he started looking around for any signs of the Harai family. Kurama, can you heal my arm please? I have to find the Harais, asked Naruto as he gritted his teeth, trying to ignore the pain as he pushed himself off the ground. I'm working on it, Naruto. Give me a few more minutes, and it would be good as new, answered Kurama. Naruto felt his tenant's chakra already making its way into his arm and healing the damage. Oblivious to the battle taking place a few meters away from him, he made his way around the explosion site looking for survivors. His heart clenched when he saw the still forms of the Harais a few feet away from the small crater where the explosion took place. He immediately ran to the trio on the ground and couldn't help but gasp at what he saw. Haruai Kijo was sprawled on the ground with his neck broken, clearly dead. Suki was currently hugging Masao. Both were covered in burn marks and wounds from the sharpened wooden debris from the cart. His heart clenched when he saw a piece of wood impaling Suki and Masao through their chest. It was clear that Suki was protecting her daughter, but the force of the explosion made sure that the piece of wood pierced both of them, taking their life. Both were dead. The Harais were dead. Naruto's heart clenched. His blue eyes that showed warmth for the first time in years became colder. He knelt on the ground and reached out with shaky hands and closed the eyes of the dead family in front of him. Tears made its ways down his cheeks, cold blue eyes, eyes that reflected the death of loved ones shed tears for the last time. A cold detachment gripped Naruto's heart as he stood up and turned his head to see the intense battle happening in front of him. They would pay. They would pay dearly. They would die. He would make sure of it. Kurama, said Naruto, whispered out loud in a detached voice, devoid of any emotion. How's my arm? Kurama shivered at the mental voice of its container. It did not hold any emotion and brought chill down his spine. All healed, Naruto. I also made sure that the superficial damage was healed as well. Kurama answered, the Biju's mental voice subdued, already knowing what Naruto was about to do. Thank you, whispered Naruto as he slowly made his way to the battle, his pace slow and measured. It wasn't the pace of a boy or any man. It was the pace of a killer stalking his prey. Blood will be flowing today, and it wasn't his. Sarutobi was having a hard time getting rid of his attackers. If they were ordinary shinobis, then he could have taken care of them easily. However, these were no pushovers. It seemed that these shinobis came prepared, countering all of his techniques with ease as if they prepared for this in advance. It seemed that IWA was hellbent in destroying him and deal a decisive blow to the leave. He dodged a rock dragon that erupted from the ground in front of him, but was unprepared when a second dragon came at him from behind it. He braced himself for impact since it was too close to dodge or counter. However, he was shocked when he heard a familiar voice speak from behind him, a voice that he was familiar with but devoid of any warmth. It was like ice. No, it was colder than ice. Byakurai. The Hokage was unprepared when a blast of white energy, like lightning, hit the rock dragon in the face, causing it to explode. Shocked at this turn of events, he turned and saw something that made his heart grip in worry and fear. Naruto was slowly walking towards him with a smoking index finger pointing at where the dragon was. He didn't doubt it, but whatever that attack was, it came from the boy that he considered a grandson. Whatever that attack was, it saved his life. Naruto walked towards the battle as he watched the fighting without emotions. However, he had a brief flash of anger when he saw his surrogate grandfather getting attacked by a jutsu that produced a large dragon made of rocks which was dodged with ease, but the second one that followed would surely hit. No, I will never lose a precious person ever again. He slowly raised his right hand with index fingers pointed at the dragon. Byakurai, was all he said before white lightning burst out of his stretched finger and hit the rock dragon, blowing it to pieces. He continued walking closer to the battle as he observed every single participant. Every single move didn't escape his notice. He saw one of the IWA shinobis charge forward to blindside his surrogate grandfather. He corrected his aim and spoke his next attack. Sho. The attacker was hit in the head, causing it to explode. Sho was a simple impact-based spell, but the amount of power he used in the spell made sure that the impact was powerful enough to blow one's head off. Naruto said the Hokage, but he was cut off when the blonde looked at him. Cold blue eyes met wary brown. GG. Please stand back, whispered Naruto as he raised his left hand. The Hokage was about to argue but shut up when a sword materialized in Naruto's left hand. He was further shocked when the boy placed it on his sash with practiced ease before drawing out the blade, a reverse-edged blade. He finally discovered the identity of the person who was taking down the bandits. He was about to say something when Naruto disappeared and turned when a shout came from behind him. What he saw made his blood run cold. Naruto was in front of an IWA shinobi with both arms cut off from the shoulder. A reverse-edged sword wasn't capable of such a feat, but he got his answer when he saw the bloody katana in the boy's hand. Instead of the blunt end at the front, the bladed edge was now exposed. Not only that, Naruto moved faster than even his trained eye could follow. Also, the damage he dealt was powerful for an 8-year-old to produce. It wasn't possible, but he couldn't deny the fact that everything that happened in front of him was real. Sarutobi was shocked yet again when Naruto disappeared without a sound, followed by a scream of pain. He followed it immediately to see an IWA shinobi sprawled on the ground with his both legs cut off. He was astounded at the bloodshed that was happening in front of him. Blood was flying through the air with each swing, and it wasn't letting up. The boy disappeared. An IWA shinobi lost his head. The boy disappeared again. An IWA shinobi lost both arms before he was literally cut in two from the waist. The boy disappeared again for an IWA shinobi to have a hole blasted through his chest where his heart was by the same technique that the boy used earlier. Sarutobi was mesmerized and afraid at the same time. His surrogate grandson was killing IWA shinobis with such power and precision that it was like a dance of death. Where did Naruto learn such skills? Where did Naruto earn such mastery over the sword? Hokage-sama, said one of his Jounin bodyguards who appeared beside him, kunai at the ready in case of an attack. The other Jounin was limping his way to both of them, one hand gripping a bloodied shoulder. What is happening? I don't know what is happening, but it seems that Naruto-kun is killing our enemies. What's worse, he is killing them as if he killed before, whispered Sarutobi as he watched the slaughter in front of him. He couldn't take his eyes away from it no matter how much he wanted to. His breath itched, however, when the rest of the IWA shinobi surrounded his grandson from all sides, readying to attack him all at once. He was about to help, but he was rooted to the spot when Naruto's mouth opened to ask a single question. Did you do it? Whispered Naruto as he looked at the ground, his hair covering his eyes, his bloodied blade at his side, dripping lifeblood on the ground. Did what, brat? Snarled one of the Jounin who threw a kunai at Naruto. Naruto raised his left hand, palm towards the incoming projectile, and spoke a single word. Seiki. Naruto whispered, causing a blue orb of energy to materialize in front of him that intercepted the kunai. When the projectile hit the orb, it blew up and reflected the kunai back to the thrower, impaling him on the head, dead. Did you cause the cart to explode and killing the Haruis? The leader of the group sneered at the boy in front of him before answering. So what if we did? Besides, it was supposed to be for the Hokage. All our preparation was wasted on some useless civilians. They got what they deserved. I see. Did you know that they were a family, and that you killed a loving father and mother along with their 3-year-old daughter? Whispered Naruto as he gripped Kenshin tighter. So? It's not like they were shinobis or anything. They were just useless civilians. People die, kid, live with it. Sneered the shinobis who pulled a tanto from his back. I understand. You're right. I'll live with it forever. However, said Naruto before he disappeared and reappeared in the air on top of the shinobi who answered him. You'll never live with it since you're going to die right now. Riot Susan. He whispered, but everyone could clearly hear him. The IWA shinobis wasn't prepared for what happened to their teammate. The shinobi who answered Naruto's question was literally cut evenly in half as Kenshin sliced him from the head to his groin. Naruto disappeared again and started the massacre that would put others to shame. It was 5 minutes later that Naruto was standing in front of the shinobi whose arms he cut off. The IWA jounin was looking at the bloodied boy in front of him in fear as he struggled to get away from the vengeful blonde by using his feet to push himself back. "Get away from me. Don't kill me, please," the IWA shinobi begged, tears streaming down his face. "Why? Why should I not kill you? Did you ask the Horais if they wanted to die? Did you ask Kijo and Suki if they wanted to die? Did you ask Masao if she wanted to die?" Naruto shouted the last part and raised Kenshin on top of him as he looked at the downed jounin with a crazed look in his eyes. "Die." Before Naruto could complete his swing, a hand gripped him on the wrist, stopping the blade before it could cleave the IWA shinobi in two. The blonde boy turned his head to stare at the brown eyes of the Hokage. "GG? That's enough, Naruto-kun. You've done enough for today," said Sarutobi in a firm voice, but it was laced with compassion and understanding. "But GG? They killed Masao. They don't even regret it," screamed Naruto as he struggled against the Hokage's grip. Tears of rage and sadness dribbled down his cheeks. "I know, Naruto-kun. But if you kill this man, then we will never be able to find out why they attacked in the first place. We need to know what IWA is planning in order to avoid the same situation that happened to the Horais," explained the Hokage. It seemed that whatever he said got through to the distraught blonde since he could no longer feel the strength behind the hand he was holding. He let go and saw Naruto flick the blade to the side to get rid of the blood before putting it back in its sheath with a detached grace. "I understand, GG. If you need me, I'll be with the Horais," whispered Naruto before he turned and disappeared without a sound. Sarutobi saw Naruto appear before the dead family and kneeled beside them. He turned to the IWA shinobi who was clearly looking at his surrogate grandson in fear. "Now let's see if you can provide me with the information I seek," said the Hokage with an evil glint in his eyes, causing the survivor of the Rock-Biter Brigade to gulp. It had been 3 days since the slaughter of Iwa's Rock-Biter Brigade, well, except for one who Naruto spared due to the Hokage's intervention. After the interrogation personally conducted by the Hokage, they found out that this was a non-designated mission, a personal vendetta by the leader of the Rock-Biter Brigade to cash in on the huge bounty on the Hokage's head, as well as the potential backlash his death would have on the Leaf. Since they were exhausted and wounded from the battle, they decided to move into the forest and recuperate after sending the armless IWA shinobi back to his village with a message to the Tsuchikage regarding their actions and a request for compensation to an unprovoked attack on his person despite the ceasefire agreement they had after the Third Great Shinobi War. The last of the Rock-Biter Brigade didn't say no to the delivery since the Hokage threatened him with Naruto's intervention if he disagreed. Sarutobi clearly remembered the panic evident in the eyes of the IWA nin upon the mention of the blonde Jinchuriki. It would seem that Naruto's power scared the IWA nin more than angering the Hokage, and the IWA nin have given Naruto a nickname after the slaughter: the Hitokiri Batusai of Konoha. Sarutobi didn't know if he was proud of Naruto for striking fear into the hearts of his enemies, or worried that the boy was too young to merit such title. He predicted that the boy would be sporting his own entry in the bingo book in the future. Good thing the IWA nin didn't know Naruto's true name, or the council in the village would be in for a shock. Such was the case. Sarutobi sent one of his messenger monkeys to the Kazekage with apologies of their delay. He didn't mention why they were delayed though, since it was possible that the power-hungry Sandaime Kazekage would take advantage of their weakened state and bring them out. The 3 days they spent in a hidden clearing deep in the forest was spent mostly to rest. However, Naruto was busy making a grave for the Hirai family, and refused any help from the trio. In truth, Sarutobi was worried of his surrogate grandson. The skills he displayed were uncanny, and he couldn't deny the fact that taking down the Rock-Biter Brigade was no mean feat. The boy's skill with the sword, as well as those various techniques he used, was mind-boggling. The boy was powerful, he couldn't deny that. The question was, where did he get such power? He knew that Kyuubi had nothing to do with it since he didn't feel a smidgen of the Biju's chakra during the battle, so everything that Naruto used was his own. Aside from the various thoughts swirling in his head, Sarutobi couldn't help but chuckle at the change in the 2 jounins that acted as his bodyguard. They were giving the blonde Jinchuriki looks of awe and respect, even addressing the boy as Naruto-sama on occasion when they talked with the boy. In most cases, Naruto just gave them a few words as answers since the boy was clearly not in the mood to socially interact with them. In truth, the death of the Horais scarred the blonde to the point that the warmth in his blue eyes was non-existent. Sarutobi was saddened that his favorite blonde had his innocence ripped away from his at such a tender age. It was morning on the third day that Sarutobi made his way out of the clearing. They set up camp and approached the makeshift grave that Naruto made for the Horizon. In front of him were 3 gravestones that Naruto created from a large boulder, each with their respective names. The aged leader saw his beloved grandson kneeling in front of the gravestone with Masao's name carved on its face. He made his way to the blonde and knelt beside him. Silence echoed across the clearing before Naruto spoke. "Will the pain ever go away, Gigi?" whispered Naruto as he eyed Masao's grave. Sarutobi knew what Naruto was talking about and decided to answer truthfully, hoping against hope that his grandson's humanity was still intact. "No," said the Hokage as he eyed the gravestones in front of him. "Losing loved ones will always be painful, Naruto-kun. Even today, I still harbor the pain of losing my wife, Biwako, during the night the Kyuubi attacked Konoha. I feel the pain when I discovered that she died in the hospital because of chakra exhaustion as she emptied her life energy to heal the wounded. The pain of loneliness I feel every day, even now." "How do you cope with it?" said Naruto as his eyes started to produce tears as he remembered Masao's smiling face. However, it stayed that way and no tears fell, as if they were held in place by his promise to never cry again. "By living," answered Sarutobi as he placed a comforting hand on the boy's shoulder. "One thing you need to know, Naruto-kun, is that our loved ones would always want us to continue with life. The 3 days that you spent with them was enough to endear them to you. Live on, Naruto, live on for them. Let their memories be alive in your heart. Strive to live and not degenerate into an empty shell of a man." Silence reigned as Naruto pondered his surrogate grandfather's words. He instinctively knew that everything the aged leader said was right. Life was fair. You love people and lose people you love. It was a cycle of life and death. However, what made it bearable were the memories and experiences you have with the people you love. It cemented the decision he made while he digging the Horizon's graves. No longer will he lose those precious to him. He would use his skills to make sure that the people he loved were safe and whole. "Gigi, I want to protect the people I love. I want to become a shinobi," said Naruto with determination in his voice as he eyed the names on the stones in front of him. Sarutobi inwardly sighed in relief, thankful that Naruto didn't degenerate into a path of hate that these situations always resulted in. He wasn't happy that his surrogate grandson would be entering the life of a shinobi at such a young age. Sure, he would become one in the future, which would take place few years from now, enough time to learn the lessons that came with the career. However, with Naruto's skill and determination, saying no would be detrimental to the boy's heart. To deny the boy would only push him to the path of darkness, and he didn't want that to happen. It was better for the boy's skill to be put to use to protect instead of random killing. With the skills he displayed a few days back, slaughter would be the perfect word to use. "I agree," said Sarutobi with a nod, causing the blonde to look at him in surprise, as if expecting him to disagree with his decision. "Don't take me wrong, Naruto-kun. You're too young to be a shinobi. However, with the skills you displayed during the battle, I don't think that it would be good for me to deny this request. We will talk more after this trip to Suna when we get back home. After all, you owe me some explanation with the skills you showed." Naruto gave him a sheepish grin, making Sarutobi inwardly crow in happiness that his surrogate grandson's sanity was still intact. "Thanks, Gigi. I think I owe you an explanation as well. If I were to become a shinobi, then it would only stand to reason that you know what I'm capable of, nay?" "Indeed." Sarutobi agreed and clapped Naruto on the back before standing up. "I suggest we take our leave. It is 3 days' travel from here to Suna, though we could get there sooner if we speed things up, and I know that you can accommodate traveling at a faster pace with the speed you showed me earlier, correct?" "Easily, Gigi," said Naruto with a smile as he stood up as well. He looked at the 3 graves and gave the Horizon a smile before taking his leave, with the Hokage mimicking his action. When they arrived at the clearing where they set up camp, Naruto noticed that everything was packed and any evidence of their presence was professionally erased. "Hokage-sama, Naruto-sama. Welcome back," said one of the jounin in greeting when they entered the clearing. Naruto sighed at the added suffix to his name. No matter how much he told the 2 jounins to just call him Naruto, they wouldn't budge. "Akito-san," said Naruto with a nod. "I guess we would be leaving now since Gigi personally looked for me. Where is Yahiko?" Akito gestured over his shoulder towards Yahiko, who was sitting under a tree, clearly suffering from a fever due to his wounded shoulder. They were able to apply first aid, but the lack of supplies made it impossible to properly heal the wound. None of them knew medical techniques to stop the infection from spreading. "He's suffering from a bit of fever, and I don't think he would be fit to travel at this rate," Akito said solemnly. "I agree. In this case, it would be best if we carry him until we can get him treated in Suna," said the Hokage as he eyed the sick jounin in front of him. "Don't worry about it, Gigi. I'll carry him. offered Naruto as he walked towards the downed Yahiko. I don't think you're strong enough to carry him, Naruto-kun. Sarutobi warned but had to bite back a yelp of surprise when the blonde simply picked up the jounin in a bridal carry without effort. It was weird to see an 8-year-old boy easily carry a fully grown man. Never mind. Are you sure you can travel at your usual speed with you carrying him? Naruto didn't say anything but simply disappeared from the spot and appeared a few meters away from the group. He gave the Hokage a cheeky grin. You were saying Gigi? Countered Naruto, grin still plastered on his face. The Hokage had a resigned look on his face while Akito was looking at Naruto in awe. Fine, Sarutobi said in resignation. We will go to Suna at full speed. Naruto, I know you're faster with that speed technique of yours, so I suggest that you adjust your distance to ours. Make sure that you keep us in sight at all times, clear? Naruto nodded and took a step forward before disappearing and appearing on a branch in one of the trees a few meters away, causing the Hokage to huff in annoyance before channeling chakra to his muscles and ran at full speeds with Naruto catching up to him easily via tree route. Akito was hard-pressed to follow the two powerhouses in front of him. The group was able to reach Suna in 1.5 days traveling at full speed instead of the assumed 3 days of travel. Sarutobi and Akito were surprised at Naruto's speed as the boy kept up with their pace. In fact, they were flabbergasted when they reached the desert when Naruto kept to the high grounds, standing on air as if it was nothing. Sarutobi vowed to interrogate the blonde when they got back to Konoha since the boy was displaying skills that bordered on impossible. Akito just stared at Naruto as if he was the second coming of Kami. When they got to the gates of Suna, the Hokage immediately processed the necessary papers and asked to be directed to the hospital to get Yahiko healed from his wound and fever. While the Hokage and Akito were in the hospital, Naruto checked out the shops and purchased a hunter-nin mask from one of the shinobi stores in the village to keep up the facade of being a shinobi. The mask was quite scary since it depicted a hanya, or a demon with large fangs and horns. Despite his age, he was at a respectable height of 5 feet 3 inches thanks to Kurama's modification of his physiology, so he could easily pass off as a young shinobi if need be. When Naruto showed up with his mask on partially covered by his orange scarf, Sarutobi couldn't help but be impressed at the boy's aura when the mask was in place. He couldn't deny the fact that the mask itself was scary considering that it was a demon's mask. All in all, Naruto was a sight to be feared, which was further given evidence when Akito almost pissed on his pants when they saw Naruto wearing his new purchase. After they checked into one of the hotels in Suna, the Hokage briefed Naruto on his job and persona. Sarutobi informed Naruto that he would be acting as his bodyguard for the duration of his stay, so he would be present to all the meetings with the Kazekage. Sarutobi warned Naruto to keep his eyes and ears open to make sure that no threats were present, and to keep a close watch on the Kazekage just in case the man had something nefarious planned for them. The meeting was boring for Naruto except for the times that the Suna shinobis, as well as the Kazekage, would eye him with a little bit of apprehension. Naruto couldn't help but grin behind his mask. He definitely liked his purchase. The blonde could practically see the Hokage's amusement to their reaction to his outfit, judging from the twitching on the side of his lips when a random Suna shinobi would yelp in fear when he was present. All in all, they stayed for a week in Suna and the conference with the Kazekage yielded positive results. Aside from the modification to the treaty, the Hokage promised the Kazekage that he would be having words with the Wind Daimyo regarding their concerns with the leader of Suna delivering the promised techniques to Konoha after the missions were properly given to the village. The Konoha group departed Suna for home in good spirits. With Naruto being open with his abilities, especially his speed, they made it to Konoha in a span of 3 days. Of course, they had to set up camp every night, and leave early in the morning after cleaning up. They didn't encounter any problems with the Chunin's guards, and the Hokage dismissed the 2 jounins and giving them a week off to relax. Naruto blushed when Akito and Yahiko bowed to him and addressed him as Naruto-sama in front of both civilians, eliciting different reactions. Naruto groaned in resignation since he knew that the 2 jounins would be spreading the word of his actions before the day ends if the gleam in their eyes were of any indication to their plans. The 2 wasn't any time and adjourned to the Hokage's office to start their discussion. After Sarutobi activated the privacy barrier around his office, the questions started with Naruto answering every single one, not leaving anything out. In most cases, the questions were on Naruto's abilities and how he got them, as well as the various trainings he went through, including his nighttime forays into the Konoha library. Also, the Hokage interrogated Naruto concerning Kyuubi, or Kurama in this case, to determine whether the Bijou had no harmful intentions with his surrogate grandson. After hearing the history of the Bijou as explained by Kurama, Sarutobi was content to leave things alone for now. The entire conversation took 4 hours to draw to a close, leaving the Hokage looked at him with a frown. That's all of it, Gigi. I hope I answered all your questions since we've been at it for 4 hours now. complained Naruto with a slight whine to his voice, causing the aged leader to chuckle. I think you answered all my questions satisfactorily, Naruto-kun. Now, before we discuss your actual position in the shinobi ranks, there are a few complications we need to discuss, said the Hokage with a serious look on his face. Complications? I mean, you're the Hokage, right? So it's only right for you to grant any rank to a person as long as they are capable, and I am very capable. Naruto pointed out with a raised eyebrow, as if daring the Hokage to challenge him, which the old man did. That may be true, but there are certain things in your training that you seriously lacked. He raised his hand up immediately to stall any arguments when he saw the blonde about to comment. Let me put it this way, Naruto-kun. You have trained extensively with your ki and Riryoku abilities, not to mention your mastery over your sword style, even if you said that you're still halfway through your training with it. No matter how strong you are, you still lack two things. Naruto nodded in agreement, and couldn't dispute the old man's words. However, the two things that he lacked made him look at the Hokage curiously. Sarutobi saw the boy's unasked question, continued. 1. You lack the experience of being a shinobi. This could be easily solved by sending you on missions to gain the necessary experience on shinobi battles, but that would be dangerous despite the abilities you have. The best way to gain this experience is to train with actual shinobis in a controlled environment. Naruto nodded, waving his hand to signal the Hokage to continue. 2nd, you lack training in shinobi skills. As you said, the only technique you have at your disposal that uses chakra is hench, and that jutsu is considered an academy basic. If you want to survive in the shinobi world where skills and techniques are diverse, you need to arm yourself with shinobi techniques as well. After all, it is quite possible that you would meet an opponent that could counter your own. This includes chakra manipulation, elemental techniques, as well as a deep knowledge of shinobi fighting tactics. I agree with you on that, Gigi, but I think learning all those would require a lot of trips to the Konoha library, not to mention practicing the skills I learned one at a time, complained Naruto as he slumped on his chair. Sure, he was interested in learning the shinobi arts since he already started on sealing, but studying the rest and practicing them would take a very long time. He wouldn't admit it, but patience wasn't one of his strong points. True, but you forget that I'm the Hokage, Naruto-kun, and I can easily teach you everything you need to know about being a shinobi. However, I don't have the time to allocate to your training, so I will be assigning you some teachers to help you along and get you started with the basic of shinobi arts. Now this got Naruto's interest. True, he could learn everything he needed about the shinobi arts on his own, but having an experienced shinobis to teach him the basics would be faster. Who do you have in mind, Gigi? Naruto asked curiously. In regards to learning the basic shinobi arts, I will be assigning Jounin's Aikido and Yahiko to teach you and give you a crash course on academy basics, said the Hokage with a smirk, knowing the going back to the basic would infuriate his intelligent surrogate grandson, not to mention leaving him under the tutelage of two people who worshipped the ground he walked on. This caused Naruto to groan, since those two developed a fanboy tendency towards him after seeing him in action. Sure, those two were fun, but it was annoying being looked and stared at all the time. Not those two. I swear, Yahiko and Aikido are acting like fangirls when I'm around, Naruto whined. True, but you can never deny the fact that they respect you, Naruto-kun. Technically, you did save all our lives. Sure, we would have survived the battle using our own skills, but the enemy that time was strong, and we were vastly outnumbered, Sarutobi pointed out with a grin. You even saved Yahiko by making sure that he got to Suna on time to get treated. Fine. I agree. Anything else, Gigi? Naruto gave in to the suggestion with a loud sigh. Despite his dislike of being treated like a god by those two, he definitely liked them. They were fun, if nothing else. Here is what I propose. You will be trained for a year before I can grant you a position that would be hidden from everyone except for a chosen few that you would be working with. You will be given a rank outside the shinobi ranking system, a rank that only I can give and remain a secret. And no, I'm not telling you until after you finish your training. This caused Naruto to pout and the Hokage to chuckle when he saw the blonde's expression. Anyway, for the first 6 months, you will be trained in the basic shinobi arts starting from the education you would have received from the academy. You will be starting with chakra control and chakra manipulation, as well as the various applications that come with it. You can read books on history during your free time since you will be mostly focusing on practical skills. The Hokage paused for a bit as he wrote something on a scroll before continuing. Once you master the basics, you will be trained for the next 6 months by certain specialists to get your skills up to par for the position I have in mind for you. You will spend time with Gekko Hate to hone your sword skills, Mitarashi Anko to be trained in stealth and interrogation, as well as some basics on poisons and antidotes. Another specialist that I plan to apprentice you with would be Yakushi Ishin, one of the doctors at the hospital who didn't look at you as the Kyuubi, to learn some basic medical techniques. From what you described me of Riryoku and Ki, it is quite possible for you to develop your own healing spells that would be of great help on certain missions. You will also be taking classes from Naro Shikaku, Konoha's lead strategist, to help you with battlefield and mission tactics, Meido Gai on physical training and taijutsu, and Hataki Kakashi on elemental ninjutsu. I would be bringing Jiraiya here to give you basic Fuinjutsu lessons, but he is currently busy with his spy network, so you just have to learn the basics on your own. Naruto looked at the Hokage as if he was crazy. That's quite a lot of subjects for me to learn in a span of 1 year, Gigi. Sure, I could do all that considering the training I was under for 1.5 years with Kurama and Kenshin, but don't you think that you're stretching me a bit too thin? Sarutobi shook his head and gave the boy a pointed look. Don't get me wrong, Naruto-kun. I won't be suggesting this if you aren't capable of handling it. With your intelligence, it is possible to learn everything they can teach you in a span of 1 year. I'm quite confident that you would fit well with the lesson plan and not complain afterwards. Fine. If you say so, Gigi, said Naruto with a huff, though he was inwardly happy that his surrogate grandfather acknowledged his capability to learn with ease. One quick question, Gigi. Why can't you just give me a rank or something? It is part of the Konoha Charter. All aspiring shinobis need to attend the academy. If you want to attain a rank, then you need to start as being an academy student, pass the exams to become a genin, then work your way up in ranks. If I just give you a rank without attending school, then that would spark a lot of questions you don't want answered. Saruto explained to the annoyed boy. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun, but it's either you attend the academy in 2 years to become a genin or work with the plan I have for you. Besides, you can always quit in the future and attend the academy to start working your way to the top if that is what you wish. The offer is open for you to take as long as you're still within the required age of admittance. Naruto gave the Hokage a resigned nod. All right, old man. I agree with your plan. But you better make my position worth my while, demanded the Hokage with a glint in his eyes. The Hokage chuckled and gave the boy a warm smile. Don't worry, Naruto-kun. Once you're done with your 1 year of training, you won't be disappointed with the position I have in mind for you. Naruto's 1 year training in the shinobi arts was an eye-opener for the blonde Jinchuriki. True, he was exposed to learning thanks to his goal to master Ki, Riryoku, and Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu, but he could never deny the fact that he was woefully inept in the shinobi arts. For the first 6 months, Naruto enjoyed his time with Aikido and Yahiko in learning the basic academy curriculum. Considering that the Hokage gave this chore to them as an A-rank mission, they spent almost every day in a training ground behind the Hokage monument to keep their activities a secret as they labored on with the training program that the Hokage personally devised for his surrogate grandson. The first month was split between shinobi history and the use of chakra. Aikido was the one in charge of this since, between the two, the Jounin was well versed in theoretical aspects compared to physical. Of course, they didn't spend a lot of time on history since the blonde already read through most of the books in the library about it. In the end, Aikido just gave Naruto a test to determine the extent of his knowledge. Of course, Naruto didn't disappoint since he got all the answers correctly, which gave Naruto some free time to pursue Fuinjutsu on the side instead of reading history books. Naruto learned that chakra was the exact combination of both Ki and Riryoku in terms of use as Aikido plowed on with the various theories he knew on the subject. Like Ki, chakra may be used to enhance a shinobi's physical capabilities, like channeling chakra to improve their speed or to add more damage to their hits. An example of the latter was Tsunade's legendary strength, which could shatter a large boulder in a single punch, making her one of the most feared kunoichis in the elemental nation. Also, chakra, like Riryoku, was also used to affect reality through the use of jutsus, mainly ninjutsu, genjutsu, and fuinjutsu, though the latter required chakra to power it instead of its actual creation. Once the theory was rammed into his head by an obsessive-compulsive Aikido, it was Yahiko's turn to teach Naruto the physical use of chakra. They first started with the basic academy techniques, like the henge, transformation, bunshin, clone, and kawarimi, replacement. Of course, Naruto didn't have any trouble with henge since it was the first jutsu he learned from the books he stole from the library. Kawarimi took a week to master since he needed to properly utilize his chakra to reach out to a physical object and replace himself with it. In most cases, the replaced items were often logs since there were plenty of it around Fire Country or any parts of the elemental for that matter, or other rubbles that was handy for replacement. Replacing himself with a human target would take more chakra since he had to overpower the target's natural defenses to get it done. Bunshin, or the clone technique, was a problem for Naruto since he had too much chakra for such a minor technique. In fact, he overloaded the chakra on the construct that it always came out as if it went through a grinder. Aikido explained to him that bunshin was a form of minor genjutsu to create an illusionary replica of himself. Due to Naruto's large and potent chakra, Illusions would never be his forte unless he reached the level of Tsunade in terms of chakra control, which made the blonde pout but was determined to attain if possible. Because of this problem, Yahiko got Naruto started on chakra control exercises, starting with the leaf sticking exercise. Due to Naruto's training in channeling ki and riryoku to different parts of his body, Naruto had this exercise down easy, though he had to exert more focus in limiting the amount of chakra he channeled if he wanted the leaf to stick. He mastered this exercise in 2 weeks, though he still wasn't able to do a proper bunshin despite his beginner control. Again, Akito informed him that Naruto still had too much chakra for the technique, and needed more precise control to get it done. The next chakra control exercise he was subjected to was tree walking. Naruto specifically enjoyed this one since his young mind found the idea of sticking on solid surface an adventure. Of course, knowing about it and doing it were two different things. Yahiko told Naruto that in order to master this exercise, he would have to channel enough chakra to his feet to stick to the tree. Too much chakra, then he would blow himself off. Too little and his feet wouldn't stick. It took him a week to master this exercise since Naruto was too stubborn to quit. His 2 trainers were enjoying the sight of Naruto getting blown off from the tree after channeling too much chakra. In retaliation, Naruto kept hitting them with so much to the Jonin's consternation. It was on the 3rd month of their 6-month program that Naruto decided to continue with chakra control since he felt that he didn't have enough control over his chakra to properly utilize the Academy Bunshin. This eventually led to Yahiko introducing him to water walking since it was the next step after tree walking and was a requirement for Chunins. Yahiko explained that walking on water using chakra required Naruto to continuously channel chakra under his feet to keep himself above the water, as well as regulating the chakra to match the depth and movement of the water. This exercise took another 2 weeks to master, though Naruto cheated a little by revising. Instead of making chakra stilts as he was instructed by Yahiko, Naruto used the same principle in creating a spiritual platform but using chakra instead. By creating a platform of chakra directly underneath his feet, he could easily walk on water without having to worry about currents and waves. He even skated a few times, much to the amazement of the 2 Jounins. Naruto also discovered a drawback concerning chakra. He could only make a platform on a solid or semi-solid surface using chakra, but making a platform on air using chakra was impossible unless one used Riryoku or the spiritual component of chakra. Naruto, however, was annoyed when his bunshin didn't come out right even after training himself with advanced chakra control. Since he was out of options, he consulted the Hokage and informed him of his problem. The main problem was the amount of chakra that Naruto had in his body. After their talk, Sarutobi informed the blonde that it would take monumental control, like those of a medical shinobi or someone of Tsunade's caliber, to produce a perfect illusionary clone. Due to the lack of options, the Hokage taught Naruto the Kage Bunshin, shadow clone, to compensate for his lack of a clone technique. It took 2 hours for Naruto to master this Jounin-level jutsu, much to the amazement of the aged leader, which cemented the idea of Naruto being a prodigy since Jounins who learned this skill took them a week or a month to master. Since Naruto learned it from the Forbidden Scroll, since the Hokage was busy doing his paperwork at that time, he was able to read through the actual function of Kage Bunshin instead of working with it blindly. The blonde found out that a shadow clone was mostly used for infiltration because of its ability to transfer its experience and memories back to the original after dispelling. Naruto's mind worked its way around the technique and found it to be a great training tool that only he could use. Due to his rather potent chakra reserves, as well as the existence of Kurama in his gut, he could literally make hundreds of clones to help him train. This thought made the blonde drool. With the addition of Kage Bunshin in his arsenal, Naruto's remaining months of training with the basics became more fruitful for the young shinobi in training. Every day for the next 3 months, Naruto would create a dozen or so of clones to continue with chakra control. Even though perfect control was impossible for him, Naruto decided that it was best to keep practicing with it so he wouldn't be wasting chakra once he got started with more advanced shinobi techniques than being happy with his current control. Thanks to Kage Bunshin to handle chakra control and reading books on history, shinobi basics, and Fuinjutsu, Akito and Yahiko proceeded to give Naruto a run on basic academy taijutsu to jumpstart his physical training in the shinobi arts since he currently lacked a proper hand-to-hand combat style. Sure, he was a master of the sword, but he sucked without it. Thanks to his previous training under Kurama and Kenshin, Naruto was physically fit and would continue to improve thanks to his daily physical exercise and chakra weights. The blonde Jinchuriki learned the academy taijutsu style but didn't find it to his liking, though he proceeded to master it since it would give him a basic foundation in learning other styles to supplement his arsenal of skills. Yahiko decided to help Naruto in channeling chakra instead of ki to get used to the enhancement it gave to the blonde's physical prowess. Naruto discovered that he was nowhere as fast using chakra to enhance his speed compared to Shuinpa. but Kenshin told him that using chakra instead of flash step would give him the physical training he needed to attain the physical speed for Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu. Such was the case, Naruto diligently continued with his physical training program since it would benefit him in the long run. Of course, both Akito and Yahiko didn't get out of this unscathed since Naruto was stronger than your average 8-year-old. In most cases, they would end up with bruises after each spar, much to the amusement of the blonde Jinchuriki. The next 6 months of training introduced Naruto to the diverse personalities of shinobis and the Konoha ranks. His days were practically filled to the brim with lessons from various masters in their chosen field. His schedule was filled, but he didn't complain. Mornings of Monday, Wednesday, and Friday were spent on kenjutsu practice with Gekko Hate, while the afternoon was spent with taijutsu and physical training with Mato Gai. The whole day of Tuesday mornings was spent playing shogi with Naro Shikaku and learning about tactics, as well as the various laws of Konoha to make sure that the blonde knew how the village worked. In most cases, the Nara helped Naruto expand his mental prowess by thinking fast and being logical with his actions. After was spent on stealth training and some poisons and antidotes with Mitarashi Anko. Thursday mornings was spent with the lazy Hatake Kakashi on ninjutsu, and afternoons with Yakushi Ishin at the hospital for medical training. Saturdays and Sundays were rest days, which were either spent in his new home in the Forest of Death or with the Sandame helping out with the paperwork, which Naruto didn't mind since it was fun reading through the various items concerning the village he grew up in. He prodded on with this additional chore, or in his case, training, since it supplemented his lessons from Shikaku. Speaking of personality, he enjoyed his time with his new teachers and learned a lot about them in the process. Gekko Hate was a Tokubetsu Jounin who specialized in kenjutsu. He was a demon with a sword and gave Naruto a workout since the Kenshin told Naruto to avoid using Shuinpa so he could attain the necessary speed for it through training. His training with the sick Jounin honed his skills in swordsmanship, which further improved his proficiency in using Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu. Naruto beamed at the Jounin when Hate informed him that his skill with the sword made it a fun lesson. Mato Gai, for Naruto, was a fun person to be with, though he was a bit apprehensive in training with the bowl-cut Jounin since the guy was forever pushing him into wearing his trademark green spandex. Kurama told Naruto that he would make it a very painful experience if he ever decided to take the offer, which cemented the blonde's decision to say no to Gai's offer. Naruto discovered that Mato Gai was the foremost taijutsu expert of Konoha and was well known in the Elemental Nation as the Green Beast, as reference to his non-traditional outfit. Due to Naruto's lack of a style, Gai taught Naruto Goken, which the blonde found to his liking. In response to this, Gai upped Naruto's weights to 50 pounds each as opposed to his previous 20, forcing him to carry a total of 200 pounds as part of their taijutsu training regime. Of course, Gai informed Naruto that he would be keeping the weights on and increasing it after each month when he got used to the current weight. Naruto was fortunate that his rapid healing factor made it bearable, or the muscle pains after each day of sparring would be the death of him. Naro Shikaku was a lady genius, as Naruto observed during their shogi sessions. The man was a monster in strategy, both existing and on the fly. Throughout their 6-month lessons, Naruto never won. Instead of gauging his improvement through a win, he counted the amount of time each game before he was defeated. The higher the time for him to lose a game, the better he was. Naruto found Hatake Kakashi to be a ninjutsu prodigy due to the number of elemental and non-elemental techniques that the man had in his arsenal. It was through the one-eyed Jounin that Naruto learned that he had an affinity for wind and a minor affinity for fire thanks to Kurama influence. Such was the case, Kakashi taught Naruto low-ranked Futon, wind, and Katon, fire, jutsus to start. Kakashi's training method didn't involve showering the blonde with techniques. Instead, the one-eyed Jounin would teach Naruto a jutsu and had him master it in both chakra consumption and speed in going through hand seals. According to Kakashi, mastery of jutsu was a boon in the battlefield since it was better to know how to use the techniques than just throwing them on the fly. Also, Kakashi taught Naruto some supplemental ninjutsus as well, like Bunshin Daibakuha, Great Clone Explosion, and Shunshin, Body Flicker, to add to his repertoire. He instructed Naruto to master these techniques to the point that he wouldn't need hand seals to perform them. Mitarashi Anko was practically Naruto's favorite. Instead of theories, Anko had Naruto play a game of tag in the Forest of Death. The aim was for Naruto to evade Anko as they ran around the dangerous forest. Of course, Naruto upped the ante a bit by considering it as a spar, and Anko relished at the idea. So instead of tag, it became a game of ambush with the aim of Naruto gaining a form of win over Anko by using traps and ambush attacks. Of course, Naruto never won since he didn't use Shunpa to gain an edge over the snake using Tokubetsu Jounin, but he learned a lot on stealth from her in the process. Anko also introduced Naruto to poisons and antidotes, commonly used in the world of shinobis, mainly on assassination missions. Naruto was an apt student, and Anko found it to her liking. Also, the snake mistress of Konoha introduced the blonde to her partner in the torture and interrogation division, Marino Ibiki, which added lessons on interrogation to the blonde's training program. It was here that Naruto found out that his spirit pressure and demon mask was an effective tool in making criminals spill their guts. Ibiki was proud of him to the point that he offered Naruto a lifetime pass to the T&I division if he wanted to dabble in interrogation during his free time. Last, but certainly not the least, was Yakushi Ishin. Naruto's lesson on medical techniques started on the human anatomy and basic first aid. Since medical jutsu was outside Naruto's field of expertise due to his lack of chakra control, Dr. Yakushi helped Naruto in learning all about the human body and hopes to apply battlefield first aid if necessary. This spurred Naruto to utilize his training in Ki and Riryoku in the healing arts. It was on their 5th month of lesson that they discovered that an application of 10% Riryoku and 90% Ki would allow Naruto to heal minor injuries to broken bones. It was on the 6th month of their training that Naruto was able to come up with a spell that would allow him to fire a healing beam towards a target and heal them of their injuries. The more energy was applied, the faster the injuries would heal. It was on the last month of training that Kurama bestowed Naruto a gift. The bijou granted Naruto a summoning contract for foxes to aid him in his shinobi career. Naruto immediately accepted and signed the contract after the bijou told him the location of the elusive contract hidden in one of the caves deep inside the highest mountain peak in Fire Country. Of course, Naruto didn't have any problems getting there thanks to his speed. Kurama explained that foxes weren't fighters but specialized more in tracking and infiltration. The only exception to this was Kurama himself due to his status as a tailed beast and the boss of the fox summons. After summoning Kurama out for the first time, Naruto discovered that the bijou was still hindered by the Shinigami's seal. The fox could be summoned but the control of the bijou's power was left in Naruto's control so the blonde could decide how much the bijou would have once summoned into the physical world. Naruto woke up from a very sound sleep 2 days after his 1-year training program in the shinobi arts was over. He couldn't deny the fact that the Hokage's suggestion made him stronger than any self-imposed training could ever accomplish. He stood up from his bed and walked to the bathroom for his morning ritual. It didn't take him long to finish since he was a bit excited to get out of his little hut in the Forest of Death and go to the Hokage's office to get his position in the shinobi ranks sorted out. After putting a pair of boxer briefs, he observed himself in the mirror to see the fruits of his training. For a 9, almost 10-year-old, he was physically fit. There wasn't an ounce of baby fat on his body thanks to his heavy Goken training with Meito Gai. His muscles were well developed and packed a lot of strength behind it despite his young age. Also, his speed grew by leaps and bounds thanks to the training. He met the minimum requirement of Hiten Mitsurugi Ryu and surpassed it with ease. Naruto couldn't deny the fact that the green beast of Konoha was a genius, able to bring out so much power even in such an undeveloped body. His eyes strayed to the bracers on his hands and legs, modified chakra weights of Gai's design since he didn't want to wear those bulky leg weights sold in many shinobi stores in the village. To satisfy his request, Gai had to ask one of his friends to fashion 4 bracers made from a chakra-conductive metal with gravity seals on them to mimic weights. All it needed was a direct application of chakra on the seal, then voila, chakra weights. Of course, Naruto paid for the items since he still had plenty of money from his bandit raiding days. Currently, each bracer was 250 pounds, making him carry a whopping 1,000 pounds on top of his body weight. He wasn't bothered by it since he already gotten used to it, though he loved to take it off once in a while and relish at the pure physical speed he could dish out with his newly improved muscles. If he was honest with himself, he could practically match Meito Gai in pure speed with the latter wearing his weights. He didn't think that he would win with an unweighted guy without resorting to Shunpa. The guy was just too darn fast to begin with. He walked over to his closet and pulled out his usual outfit of blue kimono, white hakama, orange scarf and demon mask, though the latter he just hid inside his kimono to be used on missions if it was necessary. He brought Kenshin out of the storage seal on his left hand and placed it on his left hip. After slipping on his favorite pair of Geta sandals, he left his bedroom and went to the kitchen for a bite of breakfast. Despite the ability to create solid clones to do it for him, cooking was one of the few hobbies that he liked to do on his own. After a breakfast of rice and pickled vegetables, he packed the onigiri he prepared for his surrogate grandfather and left the hut. He looked around a bit to enjoy the morning air and smiled as he noticed his vegetable patch yielding some wonderful growth. He started gardening after moving into his new home and loved the large bounties it yielded thanks to the chakra-laced forest he lived in. Giving the clearing one last look, he disappeared in a puff of smoke and leaves. Naruto appeared just outside the door of the Hokage's office and knocked. He entered after getting a muffled enter from his surrogate grandfather. "Good morning, old man. I brought you breakfast," greeted Naruto before lifting the bento box to show the Hokage his morning offering. "Good morning, Naruto-kun. What is it today?" asked Sarutobi as he eyed the box hungrily, causing Naruto to laugh. Ever since he started exploring the extent of his culinary talents, the aged Hokage was just too lazy to eat at home, expecting him to bring him his daily fare of morning goodness. Just a few onigiri's today since I ran out of spices for a home-cooked meal. I know you don't like my pickled vegetables all that much, replied Naruto. The Hokage made a face upon the mention of the preserved food. I don't know why you like pickled vegetables in the first place, said the aged leader with a shudder. I prefer meat, rare red meat. You know, too much meat is not good for your cholesterol, Gigi. Naruto chided the man before placing the box of onigiri's in front of the Hokage, who immediately took one and downed it into a single bite before giving him a glare. I rue the day I introduced you to Isshin. Since he started teaching you to follow a healthy lifestyle, you've been pestering me about my diet for months. Huffed the Hokage before taking another rice ball. This time, he took a small bite and chewed it slowly with a moan. You're really a good cook, Naruto-kun. I hope you make some of your delicious sushi in the future. It's to die for. Naruto laughed and seated himself in front of the Hokage, who was busy eating his third helping. The salmons are still too small at this time of the year, Gigi. I promise to make you some next month when the ones I'm growing are fully matured. Promised Naruto, thinking about the makeshift fish pond he had below the waterfall in his clearing. He would purchase some live fish from the visiting merchants and grew his own, effectively giving him a fresh supply of fish if the season was kind to him. This offering made the Hokage grin in happiness. Naruto exchanged a light conversation with his surrogate grandfather until after the last onigiri was shoved down the old man's gullet. Thanks for the breakfast, Naruto-kun. Now let's discuss the position I had in mind for you. But before that, let me go through with the evaluation from your teachers for the past year. Naruto nodded in agreement. Sarutobi pulled out a scroll from his hidden drawer and proceeded to read from it. According to your teachers, you did quite well with your lessons and had exceeded their expectations of you. Your knowledge of the shinobi arts are above that of an experienced chunin, bordering jounin level. Your jutsu repertoire has grown to incorporate elemental techniques, though I see that Kakashi taught you some support techniques as well. Your taijutsu grew in leaps and bounds according to Mato Gai, and I'm happy that your physical development exceeded the program laid out for you. Let me see, stealth, medical knowledge, interrogation techniques, strategy and tactics, as well as kenjutsu are properly trained. I would say that you're perfect for the position I'm offering you. Ah shucks, old man, you're making me blush, said Naruto with an absolutely straight face, but the twitching of his lips was a testament that he was holding back a smile. Indeed. Anyway, the position I had in mind for you is to become my hidden shinobi, so to speak, a special operations shinobi under my direct command. All your missions will be assigned by me, whether alone or to work with another team. You are not allowed to show yourself in public, so I advise you to keep wearing that demon mask of yours during missions. No one is to know of your existence. Only a few people know of your identity, so I suggest you keep it that way. In a way, you're my trump card, so to speak. And what is the name of my position, Gigi? Naruto asked curiously, though excitement was evident in his voice when the Hokage listed down his job description. You will be known as Kage's Hand and the first of my Special Operations Division, Sarutobi informed him with a proud smile. Kage's Hand, huh? Sounds good, Naruto said with a nod. So when would I be starting getting missions, old man? Actually, I have the perfect mission for you, Naruto-kun, if you chose to accept it. Consider this as your final test, so to speak. Naruto nodded eagerly, causing the Hokage to chuckle. We have received word from one of our spies outside the village that the A-rank missing nin, Aoi Rokusho, was sighted in an abandoned village northeast of Konoha. Your mission, if you chose to accept it, is to find Aoi and retrieve that Nidame's Raijin no Ken from his person. Aoi is to be brought in dead or alive. By dead or alive, you mean preferably alive than dead, right? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow and took the mission scroll that the Hokage offered to him. It's up to you. If you can bring him alive, then good, since I want Ibiki and Anko to have a go at him to see if he has any sensitive information that would be crucial to Konoha's defense. If dead, then it's no loss since he is a renegade shinobi. Naruto nodded and opened the scroll to read through his mission objective. Memorizing its content, he used the seal-less Katon Jutsu to burn it, earning an approving nod from the Hokage, who expected him to do so. I guess I better get going, Gigi. The sooner I get this mission done, the better, said Naruto before standing up from his seat. He pulled out his demon mask from his kimono and placed it on. With a nod, he exited the office using Shunpa to get started with his first mission as Kage's Hand, leaving the aged leader to visibly shudder at the image of the mask portrayed on the boy's skills. Demon indeed, whispered the Hokage before remembering the words of the IWA shinobi who Naruto left alive after slaughtering the rest of his companions. The legend of Konoha's Hitokiri Batosai begins. Good luck, Naruto-kun. Naruto was standing on top of a large boulder on a small hill behind the abandoned village where Aoi was said to use as a base along with the rest of his troops. The masked blonde let his eyes memorize every building and alley of the small village while counting the number of bandits and thugs walking around. From the looks of it, they weren't expecting any form of attack judging from their loud behavior. Not really that organized, aren't they? Naruto commented as he observed a few of the bandits fighting over a bottle of sake. What do you expect? They're bandits after all. Sure, this missing Nin must have whipped them into shape or something considering that they follow him, but deep down, they're still thugs, replied Kurama as he observed the arguing drunks through Naruto's sight. Aren't you going down there and get the job done? Not yet. I think it's a bit foolish to just go down there with swords blazing without knowing exactly the number of Aoi's troops. I'm sure that he's here somewhere, though I'm not a censor, so I can't get a lock on him. Considering his rank, he should be the only one here with the highest chakra reserve in the area. It is quite possible that he has other missing Nins with him due to his reputation of having the Raijin no Ken. Then stealth is the answer then. Kurama agreed. Why don't you use some of my kin to stalk the village below? Find out their exact numbers. And I know just the fox to do it. Oh? I told you when I let you sign the contract that the foxes are well known for their stealth and infiltration capabilities. Except for me, none of them are fighters. However, there is one fox that is a censor and can detect any chakra and life signatures with ease. If you want to summon him, then I suggest you do the usual summoning hand seals, then call out the technique, though you need to call out his name to bring out the right one. What's the fox's name? Akira. Naruto gave the fox a mental nod before moving back a few steps to hide himself better, since the smoke from the summoning would be easily seen by the sentries below. Judging that he was far enough, he blurred through hand seals and slammed his hand on the ground. Kuchios no Jutsu, Akira. When the smoke disappeared, a small brown fox the size of a small pup was sitting on his haunches and looking at him with excitement. Hi there. I guess you're our new summoner, huh? Akira said excitedly. He sniffed the air a bit and tilted his head to the side. Why do you smell like Kurama-sama? Hi. You must be Akira. I smell like Kurama because he is currently sealed inside me. I'm his Jinchuriki. My name is Naruto, by the way. Naruto informed the fox, a grin behind his mask. I see. Well, Naruto-sama, what can I do for you? Inquired the fox with an enthusiastic wag of his tail. There is a town below that I need you to scout for me. Try to find out how many people there are and try to detect the strength of their chakra signatures to see if there is any shinobi among them. Try to determine the exact location of the strongest chakra signature in the area and report to me after you have all the information. The fox nodded and shimmered a bit before disappearing. This caught Naruto by surprise. What in the world was that? Naruto asked his tenant. That was Akira's special skill. A form of invisibility technique that is unique to my clan, and he is the most skilled user of it. In fact, even I have trouble finding him if he doesn't want to be found. He is the best infiltrator among all the foxes, which makes him the best in this type of situation. I think you already know that he's a censor, so detecting chakra is quite easy for him. I see. Then I guess that all we need to do is wait before we get a full report from Akira when he gets back, said Naruto as he walked back to edge of the hill to continue his vigil of the village below. It was an hour later that Akira returned to give Naruto a full report of the village below. According to the fox, Aoi had a total of 73 men. 10 of them were missing Nins with chakra signatures ranging from low Genin to mid Chunin. However, the most disturbing report was Aoi's chakra signature, which was in mid Jounin. Naruto wasn't worried about it much considering who he was and what he was capable of, but it wouldn't hurt to make a plan of attack just in case. After half an hour of coming up with a plan, Naruto, Kurama, and Akira decided to do an infiltration/assassination mission. Akira would be tucked inside Naruto's kimono and advise Naruto to the location of the missing Nins, since they would have to be taken out first. The bandits could be handled last, since there were more along the line of cannon fodder if nothing else. After depositing Akira inside his kimono with the fox's head poking out of his chest, he disappeared from the hill using Shuinpa to start the operation.